All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is October 23rd, 2025 here on this Thursday afternoon in Austin, Texas. We're going to forego our normal show intro today, and we are going to go right to the White House, where President Trump is taking questions from the press, and we'll pick up with the normal show format after that. But let's go live to President Trump at the White House taking questions right now, as a global trade war is now kicking off with Trump's latest sanctions against Russia.
And we'll see what happens at the end of next week, because I'll be meeting next week, as you know, along with, we're stopping in Malaysia, we're stopping in South Korea, we're stopping in Japan. I'm meeting with President Xi actually in South Korea, so it'll be the first thing on the list. Yeah, please.
Yes, Mr. President.
On the drug boats, sir, has there been any discussion about capturing one so that you can show the amount of narcotics?
We know everything about them. Yeah.
Oh,
Jennifer,
gee,
we know
who
everything
was
about
that?
them.
Who said that?
We know where they're coming from, who they're coming with, generally who's in the boat. I'll let Pete discuss it a little bit, but they have incredible intelligence. And, you know, usually when you see 5 engines, I've never even seen that before, but when you see 5 engines on a boat going about 65 miles an hour, loaded up with white powder in silver cases, generally speaking, that's not a good sign. They're not going fishing, right? And you don't see any fishing rods, right? So, Pete, I'll let you discuss that a little bit, please.
Well, yes, sir. Likewise, generally you don't see
put the
fishing
burden
in
on-
submarines either, sir.
Take the heat on
So,
this. Boy, that's
the
rough,
U.S.
Pete.
military, as I mentioned, nobody better in the world at mapping networks, identifying who's connected to who inside terrorist organizations. It's just the media is used to hearing that when it pertains to Afghanistan and Iraq and ISIS and Al-Qaeda. But if you reframe how you understand the world in our own hemisphere, that's exactly what these foreign terrorist organizations are. And so we will track them, we will map them, we will network them, and we will hunt them and kill them, because they're trying to, and they are killing and poisoning the American people. And inside that, we have all the license necessary, all the authorities necessary to take these kinetic strikes, and we'll continue to take them.
And we've been, you know, just to add, because I think it's important, we've been capturing them for years. You know, it's not like, gee, let's capture one. We've been doing that for years. For 25 years, we've been doing it. Not at a level like we're doing it now. I mean, just with the hits we're hitting, but we have much more intensity than any administration's ever had. But we've been capturing these boats for years, and they get back into the system, and they do it again and again and again, and they don't fear that. They have no fear. The thing I can tell you right now, it's very hard to find any floating vessel right now on the Pacific or in the Gulf, and I would like to call it by its official name, the Gulf of America. Another little triumph of the Trump administration. I said for years, I said, why do we call it the Gulf of Mexico? It's 93%, the shoreline is 93%. So I never understood that. So I made that change. I never realized how easy that was going to be, other than, I guess, AP fought us in court, and the judge said, but that's the name. And actually, they were sort of semi-prohibited from even covering us after that. It was pretty amazing. But we have the Gulf of America, and there are very few boats, very, very few boats, not even fishing boats, to be honest. I don't want to do that to the fishing industry, but it's been so effective. And our sea drugs, as they call them, they use the term sea drugs, the drugs coming in by sea, are like 5% of what they were a year ago, less than 5%. So now they're coming in by land, and even the land is concerned, because I told them that's going to be next. You know, the land is going to be next, and we may go to the Senate, we may go to the, you know, Congress and tell them about it, but I can't imagine they'd have any problem with it. I think, in fact, while we're here, I think it's a good idea, Pete. You go to Congress, you tell them about it. What are they going to do? Say, gee, we don't want to stop drugs pouring in. They're killing 300,000 people a year. I think that's the real number, 300,000 people a year. So between that and my discussion with President Xi, I think we have never made progress like we've made. The sea drugs are almost dead, and they can't come in that fast from the land. And the land drugs are much more dangerous for them. It's going to be much more dangerous. You'll be seeing that soon. So that's the way it is, yeah. Go ahead, please. Yeah, go ahead, please. With the glasses, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Good.
I wanted to ask, what's your reaction to Representative Dan Goldman calling on NYPD to arrest ICE agents who he says are acting illegally? He says they are illegally assaulting people and illegally detaining people at immigration courts in New York.
Well, you know, I know Dan, and Dan's a loser, you understand. He's a guy that doesn't have what it takes. He's been trying so hard, and they're exhausted. I mean, it's so ridiculous, right? A suggestion like that. So, you know, they're just trying so hard, and it's not working. They've even now started imitating me, of all people. They want to imitate me, and they start using foul language, but they use too much of it. You know, you can't use the F word 7 times in one sentence. It doesn't work. It might work once every 7 news conferences, but you can't do it. You can't do it 7 times in one sentence. So I don't know. They're really they're in big trouble. That party. Go ahead.
Mr. President. Some alleged smugglers have survived some of these recent strikes and been sent back to their home country. If they're terrorists, why not just arrest and detain them?
Go ahead.
2 points on that. First, when I served in Iraq in 2005 and 2006, we used to, in sort of a gallows humor way, talk about the Iraqi catch and release program, the reality that we would catch a lot of people, hand them over, and then they would be recycled back through, and we'd have to recapture them or attack them again. And that's why changing the dynamic and actually taking kinetic strikes on these boats ought change the psychology of these foreign terrorist organizations. To those 2 that survived the shot on the semi-submersible, think again, compared to Iraq and Afghanistan, the vast majority of people that we captured on the battlefield, we handed over to the home country. Did we always like how it shaped out? Sometimes we did, sometimes we did not. But 99% would go to the Afghan authorities or the Iraqi authorities. So in this case, those 2, they were treated by American medics and handed immediately over to their countries where they came from, hopefully to face prosecution, which is a very standard way of handling something like this.
And you'll do that with future survivors, anyone else who's survived?
We've got protocol of how we'll handle it.
Not that guy. He's so hopeless. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yesterday, there was a vote at the Knesset on annexing the West Bank. Do you see it as a challenge to your peace efforts?
Could you say that louder, please?
Yes, yesterday there was a vote at the Knesset in Israel on annexing the West Bank. Do you see it as a challenge to your peace efforts?
Will you answer that, please? Because I cannot understand the words you're saying. Where are you from? Where are you from? You're from France. Beautiful accent, but we can't understand what you're saying.
She said a vote at the Knesset on the West Bank.
The West Bank is, don't worry about the West Bank. Israel's not going to do anything with the West Bank, okay? Don't worry about it. Is that your question? They're not going to do anything with the West Bank. Don't worry about it. Israel's doing very well. They're not going to do anything with it. Yeah, please.
President Trump, are there any safeguards in place to protect Americans from fentanyl and cartels when you leave office in 2028? Any protocols that could be put in place in case a future administration comes in that wants open borders? And I also have a question for the Secretary of War as well after your answer.
Well, the biggest thing we can do is make sure they don't come in, because open borders, they would destroy. It's amazing that our country is even surviving with what we went through, coming in by the millions and coming in from the wrong places. You know, I know all these people that run these countries, and they're smart. They're very street smart, and they're not sending their best. You know, they're not sending. They're taking them out of their prisons and their mental institutions, as I say over and over again. They're the drug dealers. They're the drug addicts. They're people that don't work. I mean, the best of them are people that don't work. They don't work. They're on welfare, their form of welfare, which is tiny. You know what their form of welfare? They give you a piece of paper. They give you nothing. But they want people that work. They don't let those people come out because they want those people. You know, they cherish those people. Those are the people that make their country run. They give us all of the people that don't work and are murderers. 11,843 murderers came in. 11,800, many of them committed, more than 50% committed more than one murder. Now, why do we want them? Why would Biden and that group of thugs that he had working for him, why would they accept these people? Why would he accept? Nobody understands it. You know, they say maybe they wanted the vote, but I did great with the Hispanic vote, but these are people from all over the world. Why would they do it? So one question, no matter what I do, I can't, you always like to know the opponent. You have an opponent. What are they getting at? And usually you can. Why would they allow 20 million, maybe 25 million people into this country, almost all of which, but most of which should not have been allowed into our country? It's one of the great enigmas. What they've done to this country should never be forgotten. In history, should never, ever be forgotten. And now it looks like we're going to have a communist mayor in New York. That'll be a lot of fun. But remember this, they have to go through the White House. Yeah, please, go ahead.
Pardoned the founder of Binance. Can you explain why you chose to pardon him, and did it have anything to do with his involvement in your
Which one?
family's?
Who is that?
The founder of Binance. He has an involvement in your own
The
family's
recent
crypto
one, yes.
business.
I believe we're talking about the same person because I do pardon a lot of people. I don't know. He was recommended by a lot of people. A lot of people say that. Are you talking about the crypto person? A lot of people say that he wasn't guilty of anything. He served 4 months in jail, and they say that he was not guilty of anything, that what he did, well, you don't know much about crypto. You know nothing about nothing, you fake news. But let me just tell you that he was somebody that, as I was told, I don't know him. I don't believe I've ever met him. But I've been told by a lot of support. He had a lot of support. And they said that what he did is not even a crime. It wasn't a crime, that he was persecuted by the Biden administration. And so I gave him a pardon at the request of a lot of very good people. Yeah, please. Yeah, Daniel.
President, thank you so much.
This is the kind of question I like.
Yeah,
right here.
the numbers from this task force are jaw-dropping. I wanted to know, this is a question for you and both Stephen, since it was said this is your brainchild. What are the lessons to be learned from the success of the task force, and what are your continued goals with this task force now that you have about 3 years left?
Well, the best thing we have going is we have such talent around this tab. I could go over every one of these men and women, and we have unbelievable talent. They've got the naturals, you know, like somebody that hits a baseball or a golf ball or a, you know, that you see more, it's more evident. It's beautiful because it's sports. You can tell somebody right away, are they good or are they not? These people are the most talented people at what they do. And when we started talking about this, Stephen and all of us, it seems so easy. What is surprising to me is how quickly we can straighten out a large city, a big city, a mean city, a city that's sick, that got very sick with guns all over the place, with bullets shooting all over, where you take your life in your hands if you go out and buy a loaf of bread. That's not America. That's not our country. And those people don't care how you do it. They just want it done. They really do. You know, when you go to the people in the street, they don't know. Is it National Guard? They just want it done. They want to be safe. And we've gained a great following of Americans, real Americans, people that want to be safe. But I think the biggest thing we say is we have tremendous talent. We were able to recognize, like a football team, like a baseball team, we were able to recognize the talent. And the talent is largely in this room for the whole country. It's largely in this room. There's really nothing like it. And that's why I think we had D.C. done, not perfectly, but pretty much done, at least normalized in 12 days. Would you say 12 days? On the 12th day, it felt different. And you know, we took a lot of bad people out, never to come back again. Then most of them never to come back again. But there's great talent, and there's also great courage. I've been watching what goes on. And then you have the radical left lunatics, and what's that all about? I mean, they're fighting us because we want to stop crime. Where do these people come from? They're paid money. I guess they're paid a lot of money. But like I saw that ridiculous march the other day, I say, these people are not representative of our country. And not all of them, of course, but many of them are total lowlifes. These are lowlifes. These are people that are paid agitators, and they're not representative of our country. So I don't know. I can just tell you that our country has tremendous spirit right now. You know that better than anybody because you cover it well. but we have a lot of people that are very happy right now with the direction. They did a poll the other day. The direction of our country is better than it's been in 37 years. And I'm upset because I think it should be better than that. I actually said we should be better than that. So, you know, thank you very much for your question. Brian?
Mr. President, yes. Thank you, Mr. President. You guys have done an amazing job in Memphis. Some of those numbers are staggering, and we've gotten message on social media wanting to thank you for that. But I think, can you talk about the number of missing children you guys have discovered in Memphis? That's amazing.
Well, it's hundreds of thousands were lost through Biden and the Biden administration, and we are getting a lot of them back. But they're either dead, they're slaves, they're captured in some form. But think of it, hundreds of thousands we're talking about, not even believable. And they came in through the border, they were sold, they were bargained for, and this was all Biden, meaning Biden and Obama, the same, you know, the same mentality, frankly. I think it's the same mentality. Let me tell you, Barack Hussein Obama was a lousy president. A lot of bad things happened. Remember when they used to talk about Trump with the jail cells? Well, he built the jail cells for the children. He built those jail cells. Remember that came out? But, sir, they were built in 2014. You remember when that came out? After me going through that stuff for about 2 weeks, and then they found out it was Barack Obama that built those jail cells. No, these people they were bad leaders. I hope we don't have it again. I hope we don't have it again. Because, you know, our country's come back a long way, but it can only withstand so much, and we don't want to ever go through that again. We never want to have open borders again. We don't want to have men playing in women's sports. We don't want to have transgender for everybody. We don't want that. We want to have a great country with low interest rates, nice housing, great education, a strong military, the basics. Yes, please.
In last night's New York City mayoral debate, Zohran Mamdani said he would close Rikers Island if elected. What kind of impact would that have on public safety?
Well, it's not good. I guess it's not a very nice place, but you need it. You know, you need something. You have a lot of additional people in New York City that should not have been here. They came here through the open border, through Biden's. You know, I don't know how they even do it. New York City's always been tight for money. And then they spend, you know, $8 billion, and nobody complains about it, on people that just showed up and they just came out of nowhere. Where did they get the money? All of a sudden they have money. I tell you what, we have to keep our prisons very fair and very safe, but you get a lot of criminals. We have a lot of additional criminals. I used to talk about it. They used to say, well, only good people come in from foreign countries. I said, that's not right. I didn't know that for a fact, but it had just started, right? The open borders and people flowing in by the millions. They make our criminals look like the nicest people on earth. That's the only good thing. They make our criminals look like nice people. They are the meanest, the most vicious. Tren de Aragua, you don't get any sicker. They cut people's fingers off because they called the cop. Did you call the cop? Yes. They cut off his finger so he can't call the cop anymore. And then they say, next time we're going to cut off your hand if you cut, because they took over his apartment in Colorado. You know, Colorado, they took over a town, then they took over another town, and you have a weak governor over there. He doesn't know what the hell he's doing, so he lets it go on. But we're getting them out of here. We're getting them all out. They're going back to lots of, not just Venezuela, they're going back to lots of countries. Venezuela would be one, however. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah.
A moment ago, you said that if Secretary Hegseth went to Congress and briefed them on the operations
No, we
against
will
these,
go, I said.
You will go. And
We
it
will
would
go.
be
We're
difficult
gonna
for them to
go.
object.
I don't see any Lawson going. No reason not to. You know, they'll always complain, oh, we should have gone. So we're going to definitely, I'd like to just tell you, let's go. We'll go.
And Mr.
We're going to
President-
tell them what we're going to do, and I think they're going to probably like it, except for the radical left lunatics.
And Mr. President, if you are declaring war against these cartels and Congress is likely to approve of that process, why not just ask for a declaration of war?
Well, I don't think we're going to necessarily ask for a declaration of war. I think we're just going to kill people that are bringing drugs into our country. Okay? We're going to kill them. You know, they're going to be like dead. Okay. Yeah. Yes, red hair.
Thank you.
Beautiful red hair.
Thank you. I'll tell my hairdresser that. She'll love it. This is a question for both you and the Secretary of War, Mr. Hegseth.
Who are you with?
I'm with the Center Square. We're a newswire service. With everything that's going on between the narco terrorists in the Caribbean, and then also with more Chinese, Iranian, Russian ships also taking part in Venezuela. Are you have any plans of expanding operations out of Roosevelt Roads and in fact placing some home porting some ships there?
Yeah, go ahead, Pete.
We're familiar with the location that you're referring to, and we'll make sure that we're properly displaced in order to deal with the contingency we're dealing with there, and also any ways in which other countries would attempt to be involved also. So we can walk and chew gum. We're definitely keeping our eyes on near-peer adversaries at the same time, but we think sending a message on these cartels, these narco-terrorists, is an important inside our hemisphere, which for far too long, other presidents, as the president pointed out, they've ignored our own backyard and allowed other countries to increase their influence here, which only threatens the American people. We're changing that.
One big thing that has happened, though, because you mentioned expansion and expand our efforts. So when I was running for office, second term, everybody was talking about the fact that nobody wanted to join the military, nobody wanted to join the great police force. They didn't want to join New York's finest or any of our police forces. They didn't want to join anything having to do almost like with the country with the uniform. We are setting records with the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Space Force, Coast Guard. We're setting records. We've never had anything like it. And I'll tell you when it started, November 5th. We didn't even have to wait till January 20th. They saw spirit. And now we have people coming in that it's unbelievable. And if we wanted to increase our military force, if we wanted to increase any one of these, including police forces, they can now get men. People didn't want to be policemen and women. They didn't want to be firemen and women. They didn't want to go into the military. We were having tremendous recruiting problems, and now we're setting records. We literally, last year at this time, you were doing stories that the recruitment was a disaster. We couldn't get men and women to go into the military. Now we have such an overabundance. We've never had, it's, as I understand it, it's like record-setting recruitment. This is in less than a year. It's been amazing. So this is a good time to expand if we want to do it, and I think we should. And we probably will. Yeah, please. Yeah. Blue.
A couple questions for you. First for you and Secretary Hegseth. Is the administration supportive of sending National Guardsmen to cities for the express purpose of aiding deportation and immigration enforcement efforts?
To expand deportation efforts?
Sending National Guardsmen to U.S. cities for the express purpose of aiding deportation and immigration enforcement
What we've done so far is stand alongside federal law enforcement in every way, facilities and personnel, but also we have a great deal of lift inside the military. We're able to move assets in a way that no other aspect of the U.S. government can. And so where we can rapidly assist with mass deportations, we have been happy to do that.
And then one more question, if I may. Is the administration at all supportive of potential measures to crack down or regulate or even ban apps that track ICE agents' locations?
What do you mean by that?
Like specific apps that are used to track the location of ICE agents?
I guess we'll do that. I'm not a big app guy. I'm not into that too much. I think Pam might be it. Let's go.
Yes.
Good answer there.
Yes. These organizations, President Trump, are coming in and their apps to track our federal law enforcement officers, and it jeopardizes their lives, where they're going to be, their location. And we've actually been working really well with the tech companies who have been cooperating because they don't want our law enforcement officers to get injured. So yes.
Well, I mean, I see it with ICE, where they're having, where they define where they live, who they are. And, I didn't have a big view on the mask, but I now understand why they should wear masks. I think it's very dangerous for them not to wear masks. They can do whatever they want. I notice some do it and some don't, but it's pretty dangerous. But when you look at, you talk about that question, I think it's very dangerous, and I think you're coming down on that very hard, right?
We are.
Yeah, please.
Mr. President.
Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. When you were running for re-election in 2024, you released a video statement where you made this exact promise to show no mercy on the cartels and employ every military asset necessary to combat them. In that same video, you also said that you plan to expose all the bribes and corruptions with politicians and the cartels.
We're doing that.
Has your
We're
task
trying to
force
do
been
that.
looking into that in American politicians?
Yeah, where the money's coming from. Because you see it. Like even that garbage deal they had this weekend, which was embarrassing to them, and the crowds were much more, the crowds were not big. Those crowds were not big at all. But when you look at signs, and they're all made beautifully, the yellow signs, I saw the yellows, the blues, but they're all made professionally in a printing shop, looks like on Madison Avenue someplace. Some guy is paying for all that stuff. And we don't mind protest. Protest is a good thing. I protest. I'm always protesting, right? But when you see some of these people are going crazy. They're going crazy because they're getting paid. Because there's no reason for them to be going crazy. But you watch some of them, and they're professional agitators, and we are finding out who's paying them. Yeah, we have a lot of information about who they are. You're going to be very surprised when you find out.
And I have a question for Secretary Hegseth. Sir, a memo circulating on social media details the establishment of a National Guard response force that's going to be trained in crowd control and civil unrest and deployed in all 50 states by April of 2026. Can you verify the authenticity of that memo, and do you have any more information on the operations?
I'm not going to answer particulars on something that may be in the planning process, but we definitely do have multiple layers of National Guard response forces, whether it's in each state, whether it's regionally, whether it's Title 10 active duty, whether it's Washington, D.C. We've got a lot of different ways that constitutionally and legally we can employ Title 10 and Title 32 forces, and we will do so when necessary.
Thank you. President Putin basically said today that Russia is immune from U.S. sanctions. He said that it would not impact the Russian economy in any serious way. Is he
Good.
wrong?
I'm glad he feels that way. That's good. I'll let you know about it in 6 months from now. Okay, let's see how it all works out. Yeah. Go ahead, please, Blue.
One question about the task force, one about the shutdown. I'm Taylor Poplars with Spectrum News. The same day you established this task force back on January 20th was the same day you pardoned the January 6th defendants.
Yeah, very proud of that. Yeah.
Just last weekend, one of them was charged with allegedly threatening to kill House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. And a big theme of this task force has been allowing law enforcement to do their job and holding accountable people who go after law enforcement. Do you worry that your actions back on day one undermine what this task force is trying to accomplish?
No, you have thousands of people that we're dealing with, and you know, if one goes haywire, look at what this guy in Virginia said, where he wanted to kill his opponent. He's going to kill his opponent. He's going to kill his opponent's children and I think wife, and he continues to run, and the Democrats continue. He's running for what, Attorney General in Virginia. Look what he said. So now, do you think all Democrats should be prohibited from living anymore? I mean, think of what he said. He's going to kill his opponent, and he's going to kill the children of his opponent, and I think the wife. I said, this guy's sick. That is a sick guy. And how do you vote for somebody like that? But I don't view that every Democrat would say that, because not every Democrat would say that. So you can't, you know, you could have one person, but I don't know of the incident. I can say we're very proud of what we did. We had the courage to do something that should have been done. The problem sometimes the Republicans are too nice. They're a very nice party. The Democrats play a much dirtier fight. You know, it's amazing. You go after dirty cops like Comey, and you go after, these are dirty cops. Letitia James is a dirty cop. You go after these people, and they say how horrible you are, and yet I got indicted 5 times and impeached twice. Nobody says anything about that. You know, they say, oh, they actually said the other day, oh, he's trying to indict somebody. I got indicted 4 or 5 times, Todd, maybe more than that. Yeah, I think you could say 87 times if you really think about it, right? With the charges, a bunch of phony guys, but nobody says anything about that. But they mentioned it the other way. No, the Democrats play a very dirty game. It's all they're good at. They're good at a couple of things: cheating on elections and playing very dirty. And they have one good trait: they stick together. They stick together. They stick together through the worst policies that anybody's ever seen. It's unbelievable how they stick together. And I respect them for sticking together, but it's a dead party because their policies are no good. Okay. Brian, we'll do a few more and we'll go home.
Wonderful.
Everybody's going to go home. I'm going back to the Oval Office, however.
Speaking of Democrats, there's a report that there's a grand jury on Adam Schiff for apparent mortgage fraud. If he is indicted, should he step down as a U.S. Senator?
Well, I'm not going to comment on that. I will just say Adam Schiff is one of the lowest forms of scum I've ever dealt with in politics. He's a horrible human being, very dishonest person. I have no idea what's going on. You tell me that he's going to be indicted. I don't know. You could ask Pam. I don't know if she could say it. Probably you are allowed to say it, but I wouldn't know about that. I can only tell you he's a very bad. I think he's actually a sick person. Do you want to talk about that?
We're not going to comment on any grand jury that's open. We can't legally.
I don't know. By the way, I hope it's true, but I don't know anything about it. Yeah, please. Oh, millions of dollars, yeah. Well, I also give a lot of money to the White House. The White House is, as you know, I give my salary, and I usually like to steer it to the White House because this house was a little bit abandoned. First of all, for 4 years, you had a guy walking around that didn't know where the hell he was. And this house was not taken care of the way it was supposed to be. I take very good care of property. I was very good at that. And you'll notice the floors downstairs, I paid for them. Marble, the most beautiful marble you've ever seen. The white floors down in the palm room, which they look like they came out of, I don't want to lose because they're big supporters of mine, Home Depot. So I'm not going to say bad, but they did come out of a box from Home Depot about 30 years ago. They were all broken, but now they have the most beautiful floors, the most beautiful lights and chandeliers. I think most of you, Brian, you've seen that, right?
Yes.
How beautiful is that? And I take care of it. So I spend millions of dollars on this building, taking care of it. It was not properly maintained, and now it's starting to gleam like it should. It should really gleam, and you should go down and visit the Presidential Walk of Fame. Have you seen it? It's quite good. I'm sure that a lot of people coming to the White House, it's hot. It's very hot, but it's really a tribute to the presidents, past presidents of our country. Yeah, please.
Mr. President.
Yeah, behind you, please. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. So on Monday, a question for you as well as Secretary Noem. On Monday, Mayor Karen Bass of LA and Representative Robert Garcia, they held a press conference and they called for an investigation into DHS, accusing them of unlawfully arresting U.S. citizens and racially profiling and only arresting people because, in Robert Garcia's words, they look like me. He's a Hispanic individual. Do you have a response to that?
Are you asking me that question?
You as well as Secretary Noem.
They are arresting bad criminals, and they're really good at it, too. I look at the numbers. They always like to say that, oh, you're arresting this.
All right. I have a feeling he's about to end it after that. And I do want to respond to some things, and then we'll kind of hit the reset button here. And we'll do a traditional intro and get into the news. But as we're actually encroaching on the end of the first hour here, I thought I'd pull that down and then respond to some of the things that was just discussed there in the White House. I get a feeling that Trump is not done making headlines today. Are you closing out on some trades right now? As the market is up, tech market is back up, Intel surging. I may or may not have made a quick trade there before going on here. So anyway, this whole thing, I'm glad that it got brought up, and Trump kind of passed it off to Pete Hegseth. I'm glad it got brought up about blowing up the boats. And like I said, this isn't some issue I'm going to really dig in on and make a big fuss about, but I don't really like it. I think they're fair questions. And as I always say, if it can't be applied universally, it's not logic, it's propaganda. Now, you might say that it's different these are international waters, whatever international drug cartels they're claiming. So you might say that this compare and contrast is not fair. But do we blow up cars with drugs in them? No. No. We arrest them, we pull them over, we get the evidence, we make a case, and we arrest them. That's what we do. So again, you can say, well, it's different. They're on a big body of water. It's different. They're international criminals. All right, I'll admit it's different. It is different, but at the same time, it's still the same. It's still law enforcement. It's still you arrest the criminals, you gather the evidence, you build a case. So I don't like it. I don't like it, but it's obviously not going to stop. And I think it's more than just blowing up what they claim are drug boats. I think there's something else going on too. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's sending a message to Venezuela that we're not messing around, or maybe there's something else on those boats. They're just saying it's drugs and they know. But I am glad it's being talked about. But if we started blowing up vans on the streets of the United States that are carrying drugs, and they just say, "Oh, this van is carrying drugs," and then a missile flies out of the sky and blows it up. That would obviously be outrageous, and nobody would support that. But since it's a boat on the ocean, I guess it's okay. Trump did get a little upset. It was the only time he really seemed to get upset in the entire question and answer session, which is ongoing still, by the way. But it was when he was asked about the West Bank. Now, I'm going to revisit this when we get into the news of the day. The whole West Bank vote with the Knesset was already in the stacks today, but Trump did get frustrated with that, and I can't get a read. Is that Trump frustrated because he feels like he just can't get an honest deal with Israel? Is that Trump frustrated because he continues to do these deals and invest a lot of good faith, effort, and trust with the Israeli diplomats, and then every time there's a big moment like this, they always stab him in the back? It's happened how many times? Half a dozen times. So I can't tell if it's Trump frustrated because he just doesn't feel like he's getting good faith negotiations with the Israeli diplomats, or is that Trump frustrated because he knows this is a issue that he's just not winning with and can't win with, kind of like the Epstein files. And then that's kind of what it reminded me of when he gets asked. 'Cause remember, it was in the same room when the whole Epstein thing started. Very similar. And he blew up and he said it was a hoax and stopped talking about it. So it kind of felt like very similar in the energy. It was very similar in the response. But I can't tell if the frustration is because it's a political issue that he just can't win with no matter what, or is he frustrated because he doesn't think he's getting good faith negotiations? I don't know, but you could definitely tell he was frustrated when the West Bank issue got brought up, but we'll revisit that. The crypto pardon. This wasn't in my stack today. It just broke right before the deal went live here today. Trump pardons convicted founder of crypto exchange Binance, Jiangpin Zhao, who already served a 4-month prison sentence. He already served his prison time. I'm sure he was on some sort of a probation since release. I'm sure they were monitoring his bank accounts and everything else, which is what is standard for major finance criminals, which is also what they did to me. Never committed a financial crime in my life, but they monitored my bank accounts when I was on probation too. That was fun. That's why it's so funny all these people make these accusations. I'm starting off on a jag, but it's a good learning experience. I've had lawyers and courts and the feds in my bank accounts for years, folks, for years. So, it is funny. It is funny when people try to make claims. It's like, well, if any of that was true, yeah, I'm sure you'd know about it. The lawyers that hate my guts get access to my bank accounts in the lawsuits. And feds that hate my guts get to get access because of their persecution of me. So, sorry. But I have a feeling this pardon is about something else. I have a feeling it's about something else. Maybe I'll just see if I can fit this in my stack somewhere here. I think we could probably fit it in today. Yeah, I think it would actually fit in quite nicely with our NBA betting scheme news today. We'll stick it in behind that. Trump said something here today that, again, I've talked about for a while. And he talks about how the people on the streets, somebody asked him about the protest on the streets. It was more it was more framing of the ICE protests than the No Kings protest, but he tied them both together because they are basically organized and funded by the same people. And he said such an important point, and this is why it's such a frustrating thing dealing with Pam Bondi, and this issue comes up again here in my notes, listening to the press conference there. But this is why it's so frustrating because as Trump is explaining, the average person that goes to these protests is a nobody, is a nothing. And look, I don't mean that as a personal insult, whatever, take it however you want. I'm just saying they're not really doing anything. They're just a useful idiot, basically. They're just a pawn in this war. And there's this candidate in Illinois. She may have been affiliated with the Young Turks. She was affiliated with somebody for a while. Maybe Media Matters. Kat Abu Gaju. I'm sorry, Kat. I don't mean to mispronounce your name. It's a tough last name. Kat Abu Gaju or Abu Gaji or something like that. And she's running for a big leftist, big liberal. She's running for a seat in Illinois. And I think it was actually her, or she made a video go massively viral. I think it was her though. She was at one of these ICE protests. It's a little blonde girl, and one of the ICE agents basically picks her up and tosses her onto the ground like a rag doll. And I mean, when you watch the video, she's clearly, I mean, she's ramming against the police officer. So it's just like, if you just would have walked away, he wouldn't have touched you. But you rammed up against him. You were pushing up against him. He asked you to stop. You didn't, so he tossed you down. Whatever. The point is, that's what this is. That's like 51% of this is that right there. The Democrats know the funder protest. This is actually a very important thing to learn about the media and the American consciousness. So they fund these things. If they get 1 million people, to go out and protest, they know they're going to be able to get at least one video of a cop assaulting, shoving, throwing to the ground some citizen, or if there's a Democrat there, actual Democrat politician there, and they can happen to be the one that gets tossed down, they know they got a news story. They know they got a negative news story to go after whoever it is, whatever groups, whatever individual, politicians. They know they got a news story, and they know they got the clip. They got that video clip to do it. So that's what it is. So when you see these numbers, they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on these protests. It's all an investment. It's all an investment. How much money do they spend on Hollywood movies? And they put their little propaganda in there too, but it's just a Hollywood production for political media. And all they have to do is get that 1 or 2 or 3 clips of a protester or a Democrat politician getting shoved by a police officer, and bing, they've got it. They've got their clip, they've got their story, they've got their ammo to go after their political opposition. So cities burn, cops get hurt, people get hospitalized, bad for the American body politic, all the negatives. They don't care. They don't care about that. This is about getting that video, getting that clip, getting that story, and using it as a political weapon, and then building like these case folders on each issue of how bad the cops are and how authoritarian the right wing is. And then it's just like they just build this case in an attempt to defeat their political opposition, and they don't care about what they destroy in the process. So all these protesters, you're just pawns in the game. You're just useful idiots in a much larger game that you probably can't even understand. And that's all it is. They want you to go out there and get tossed around by a police officer. So they have their story and they have their video clip. And they'll pay $100 million to get it. And they do. And they will continue to. So it's important that Trump brings this up today. And this is the frustration. It's like, yeah. So why aren't we going after the big guys? Why aren't we going after the funders, the organizers? We're way past the criminal element of this. We passed that up years ago after Mike Brown. That's really in the modern sense when we cross the threshold of, okay, this is criminal activity now. They're burning entire cities to the ground. They're attacking officers. They're attacking citizens. Mass robberies, mass lootings. But they didn't address it properly in Trump's first term. So now it's like, okay, we keep getting told we're going after the money. We're going after the money. And it's just like, it's these lowlifes in the streets that they keep, holding up by the scruff of their neck saying, see, we got one. It's like, no, you got nothing. You got an orc. You got a demented mind control orc that they'll pump another one out of the ooze in 60 seconds. So it's very important that I think we continue to put the pressure on that. And I'm glad Trump said it today. It's like, yeah, these lowlifes are not the issue. They're useful idiots. It's the funders, it's the organizers. And Trump talked about all the money going to it. And it seemed like Pam Bondi, I mean, I don't know. The Bondi just seems out to lunch, man. She just seems way in over her head on this deal. But Trump basically insinuated that they already know the funders and the organizers and that they're about to do a major expose is what it sounded like he was saying. Now, to me, that's him running cover for Pam Bondi. Because if you already have it, then what are we doing? What are we doing? Why are we waiting? Are we waiting for the next big riot? Are we waiting for the next protest to get violent? Are we waiting for the next police officer to get attacked? ICE agent to get attacked? Innocent person to get attacked? God forbid, killed? What are we waiting for? Everybody knows who funds this stuff. Everybody knows who organizes this stuff. What are we waiting for? And it seems like Trump is kind of right there with us. And then there's Bondi, like a golden retriever waiting for a pat on the head. And he even asked Pam, he said, Pam, you're cracking down on that, right? And she goes, yes, yes. You are? Just a fair question. I just ask you right now. I just ask America right now. Is Pam Bondi cracking down on the funders and the organizers of all of these protests? And we shouldn't even use the word protest, but this way everybody understands what we're talking about. Because the protesters are one thing. It's the people that are funding it that are the real criminals that know what they're doing. And Pam, I mean, but isn't that the very fact that Trump has to ask Pam Bondi that during this press conference is proof that there is nothing. There's nothing. And then Trump has to cover her ass again. He leans over and says, Pam, you're cracking down on that, right? And she's like, oh, well, oh yeah. And then Trump is like, oh, boy, she's got nothing. Okay, I guess I'll cover again. Yep. Pam, you're cracking down on that, right? Pam, you've got that? No? Okay. Well, we're going to do something. We know they're out there. We know they're funding it. We know they're organizing it. We have the names. Pam, maybe someday we'll find her desk and we can do something. No, that to me, that was Trump. If Trump has to ask Pam Bondi if she's cracking down on it, then she's not cracking down on it. And then since Pam couldn't even answer the question, he had to go on and explain it himself. And it was funny. That was a hilarious. Trump goes, I protest all the time. I protest all the time. What? Trump protests all the time. Okay. That's funny. And then how is it that Trump didn't even know about these ICE tracking apps? Again, where is Pam Bondi? He goes to the apps and he leans over to Pam again. He says, "Oh, Pam knows about that." And she's like, "Oh yeah." And again, Trump's just like, "Okay, so you have nothing? You just have oh yeah again? You just have a smile and a wave again?" It's getting ridiculous. I mean, at least when he throws it to Hegseth, he steps up and takes it. Bondi just like slinked like, "Oh yes, yes, Mr. President. Yeah, everything's great." So she's not even telling Trump about the ICE trackers. Can't answer the question about what's being done about these apps. Can't give any answers about the funders and the organizers or anything. Trump has to cover her ass on that too. She is really getting she's beginning to stick out as a complete incompetent, uh, how should we say it kindly? She's turning out to be, beyond incompetent, let's just say. She's way out of place. And you can take issue with the other members. You can take issue with the other members of Trump's cabinet, and that's fine. But at least they're able to answer questions. At least they're able to step up and own the stage when it's their turn to speak. If Bondi's not on Fox News, she doesn't seem comfortable with anything. Seems to be the only place where Bondi is comfortable. Or maybe on undercover, James O'Keefe videos. He mentioned the missing this was actually a question from the press, missing children in Memphis that they rescued. You know, there's a lot of weird stuff going on with that. You guys may know Craig Sawyer. I've been, friends with him for a long time, been interviewing for years. They got a massive bust in Nashville, and then that got covered up locally. Very weird stuff going on with that. Very weird stuff going on with that. Alright, so that covered it. By the way, they have ended the press conference now. It is officially over. So, we're gonna kinda just reset the show here, and I'm gonna come back and do a normal introduction for the show and everything that's coming up on the show, and then, get into the news today, but wanted to cover that press conference for y'all. Hey, folks, our friends at My Patriot Food Supply have a great offer for you right now, and we hope that you will take advantage of this. First of all, before I tell you about this special, the Winter Prep Special 3-month emergency food kit with $400 in free gifts at mypatriotsupply.com/Owen. Before I tell you about this special here and what they're offering you and what they're offering the audience of this show, let me just generally just say that if you don't have emergency food supplies, why not? You insure everything else. There's insurance for everything. Why not insure your food? Why not ensure that your family can eat in an emergency? To me, it's a must-have. So I hope that you will insure your food supply. I hope that you will ensure that your family can eat in an emergency by going to mypatriotsupply.com/Owen, mypatriotsupply.com/Owen. Get the insurance you can eat. Get the insurance that your family is going to be taken care of in an emergency, and shop with the good guys, folks. Shop with the good guys. These guys really do care about America, and they do a lot to keep independent media alive as well. So it's a very symbiotic relationship that they have with the American patriots and the conservative talk radio independent press. And so we salute them for that. But part of this deal, mypatriotsupply.com/Owen, the Winter Prep 3-month emergency food kit with $400 in free gifts. So I can tell you about the emergency food that comes in this kit, the 3-month supply. And by the way, they're well known for having the best tasting emergency food supplies, the highest quality emergency food supplies, comes in the highest quality storage container. But beyond that, this is something you might not think about. This is something in the winter prep package that is so important, and that is the Vesta off-grid space heater. It's a space heater that doesn't use electricity. It runs on something called canned heat, which is an indoor safe fuel. So you can use it inside. And not only do you know that you'll have a space heater that doesn't require electricity, it can also double as a stove to boil water or cook food, which most of the time, until you've actually been in that situation where you have to go into your emergency food supply, you don't even think about this stuff. But we've had to do that before here in Austin. And so you realize, I didn't think of that. Wish I would have thought of that before. Well, now our friends at mypatriotsupply.com/Owen have thought of it for you. It's the Vesda electric-free space heater that can also be used as a stove to boil water or cook food. It's really a necessity for any preparedness kit. It's a necessity for any patriot that is building up their emergency insurance for their family. And so we hope that you will shop with the good guys. mypatriotsupply.com/Owen to look at the winter prep special 3-month emergency food kit. We thank our friends at My Patriot Supply. Okay, we enter the second hour, but let's just pretend like it's the first hour, and let's hit the reset button and do our normal news intro. We'll just pretend like we're starting the show right now. How about that? All right, ladies and gentlemen, I can do whatever I want. It's my show. So Trump's trade war has officially gone global, and there are some major developments today in this story. And it looks like the Russian sanctions have triggered an entire line of dominoes to fall. And so the question is, was Trump anticipating this? And you do have to ask. Now, I've been clear that I think this is Trump's strong point. And if I have faith in Trump to get anything right, it's doing the international business deals like trade. But you have to wonder. There's a lot of moving parts. He is an 80-year-old man. He's very busy. And you just have to wonder if he can get it done like he wants to. So we're going to look at this. But the Russian sanctions, folks, a whole line of dominoes has fallen now. And it's not in our favor. Not right now, at least. So I'll explain how that ties into some other economic news today as well. Now, of course, Israel back in the news. Trump was in Israel, then Vance was in Israel. Now Marco Rubio is in Israel. They brought up the Knesset vote on the West Bank during that press conference. We'll look into that. And then there's more news. Who knows? It's hard to keep up with it. But there's more news that Israel is bombing again in Gaza. So I don't know. It's hard to keep track of this stuff, quite frankly. And there's still that media blackout. And there's less and less media that's even willing to go into the area because of how dangerous it is. But we'll look into that. There's a story today about another illegal alien truck driver killing American citizens, young children. And there's actually a couple of these stories in the news today. And then we've got some new background information on that. So what does it mean? As Amazon says it's planning to replace over 500,000 U.S. workers with robots. U.S. workers to be replaced by robots. You've got this massive gambling story out of the NBA, and then a rigged poker league that a former NBA player also happened to be involved with. Now, this story goes a little deeper, and I've since I came from the sports media, I'm pretty in tune about how this stuff. I've read Brian Tuohy's work. I've interviewed former NBA officials that got caught rigging games. So I know how this stuff works. They're going to try to wrap this deal up. And quite frankly, the feds might even be willing to help them wrap this deal up. Because this has happened before. The feds have caught sports leagues and players rigging games and stuff before, and then they bury it or try to utilize the people for other stuff that they can do. You catch my drift. But it's funny today as this is happening, and everybody's saying the same thing, because they're up there grandstanding about busting this gambling ring. It's like some guy's rigging a poker match. All right. And rigging NBA games or rigging betting lines. That's nice. That's nice. Now, where are those Epstein files? Where are those Epstein files? That's what we're wondering. We weren't too concerned about the NBA being rigged. We all kind of already assumed that was going on. So where are those Epstein files? We'll wait. We'll wait, but we won't hold our breath because, we'd probably run out of oxygen.
This news update was brought to you by OwenSchroyer.store, the official site for Owen Report merchandise.
It's the fastest 3 hours on the internet. It's the Owen Report with Owen Schroyer.
Yeah, we're already 1 hour in. I was concerned I wasn't even going to be able to cover all the news in 3 hours today. But I felt it was necessary, maybe not necessary, but I felt it was important to pick up that press conference from the White House, because you never know what kind of news Trump is going to break. And I didn't want to miss anything before I got into the news. So there you go. All right. I was really concerned yesterday that Trump's sanctions against Russia was going to be a bad move and was going to see a negative impact. And I think as far as the geopolitical concerns are, I think so far, 24 hours later, it's proven to be a bad move. Now, you don't want to gauge too much from these issues off of the markets, because the markets are rigged too. But if you were going to gauge this off of the markets, then you'd say the markets are responding positively, because they are. They're up today. So the markets are responding positively, but that could just be another big pump and dump. Get ready for tomorrow. But when you look at the larger geopolitical issue and you remove Wall Street, you see now that all of these different factors that could go either way, and Russia was kind of the hinge of them, they all in the last 24 hours, since the sanctions were issued by Trump, they've all fallen the wrong way. But it does appear, and again, it gets back to the military-industrial complex, but it looks like, at least for the time being, Trump is allowing the military-industrial complex foreign policy to stay in place, and he's going to leverage whatever he can out of it, specifically with NATO, with Ukraine, and with Israel. And we may not like this. I certainly don't like it. But I have to be willing to open my mind to other perspectives and think, why would Trump be making these decisions? Well, in a sad reality, this is the hand he was dealt. This is the hand he was dealt. This is the leverage he has. And my guess is that's how he sees it. He has to be leveraging NATO. He has to be leveraging Ukraine. He has to be leveraging Israel because that's the hand he's dealt. I can't play 4 aces in a hand if I don't have 4 aces in a hand. He doesn't. He has Israel, NATO, and Ukraine. That's what he has. And he's got the U.S. consumer market, but that's more of a weapon against China. EU's new sanctions boost allies' push to hit Russian energy. So it does look like, because NATO comes to the White House yesterday, it looks like Trump is working with the NATO allies and the EU against China. He's leveraging everything he can in the EU against China. And China has now basically decided it's going to continue to try to court Russia as the U.S. aims sanctions against Russia and is again utilizing their BRICS alliance to try and harm the U.S. dollar, which it has done successfully. But so after Trump announced the Russian sanctions, the EU follows suit and says, we're not going to be purchasing Russian oil, and it's the 3 top Russian oil companies, which will have an impact. That will have an impact. The U.S. sanctioning Russia is almost meaningless. It's almost worthless. But if the U.S. sanctions Russia and then Europe follows, as they have, now all of a sudden you've got something. But you've now put Russia into a position where it now has to find an ally. If Russia is not going to have any allies in Europe, and if Russia is not going to have an ally in the West, the United States of America, then they're going to find an ally elsewhere. And if that ally is China, I don't think that's a good move for us. I don't think so. But that's what they've done. They've now pushed Russia once again into the arms of the Chinese. But as Trump said today, let's see how it all works out. So you could say Trump has leveraged the EU against Russia. That has definitely happened. But will this be a good thing or a bad thing long term? 19th package of sanctions against Russia. EU targets Russian energy, third country banks, and crypto providers. So obviously the deal was cut when the NATO leaders were in town. And when Trump is meeting with these other European leaders, he obviously knew that this would happen. When he would sanction Russia, he probably told them, as soon as I sanction Russia, you guys will follow suit, right? And if the answer is no, then we won't be funding NATO anymore. Oh, yes, okay, whatever you say, Mr. President. Yes, of course. So you see how that works? So Trump doesn't really have the leverage on Russia, folks. I mean, what? Is he going to threaten to continue to support Ukraine? You think Russia cares about that? Russia could wipe Ukraine out tomorrow if they wanted to. Russia could go into Kiev right now and take the entire country of Ukraine. If that was their desire, they could do it. And there's nothing Trump can do to stop it. Now, he's not going to get U.S. directly involved in the war. So what? Is he going to say? Is he going to say, oh, we're going to continue with the financial aid and the military aid? And Putin's going to say, oh, you mean like you already have been that's done nothing? Okay. So that doesn't work. Trump can't sanction and say, oh, we're going to hurt the Russian economy because he doesn't have that leverage, but he does through the EU. So this is what Trump does. He comes to the EU, he goes to NATO, and he says, all the money that we give you is gone if you don't sanction Russia. Say, well, when do you want us to do it? He says, well, I'm going to try to make a deal. If it doesn't work, I'm going to issue sanctions, and then you guys we're going to follow suit. And if you don't, we're cutting all your NATO funding. Yes, Mr. President, we will follow suit. And so now they have. So there's Trump's leverage. But now here comes the equal and opposite reaction. BRICS speeds up dollar selling. Chinese firms offload $51.8 billion. This is a direct attack on the U.S. dollar. And this is a direct response to Trump sanctioning Russia and China saying, okay, Trump's leveraging the EU. Hey, Russia, Why don't you leverage us? We'll help you out. We're trying to hurt the U.S. dollar. And if America doesn't want to work with you guys, we'll play with you. We'll help you out. We'll scratch your back. That's not good news. And when you combine it with this, ladies and gentlemen, the dollar has already seen its steepest decline in over 5 decades this year. Are you hearing me? In the first half of 2025, the U.S. dollar saw its steepest decline in over 5 decades. The DXY index, which tracks the dollar against major trading partners, fell about 11% from January to June, marking the end of a decade-long rally that began in 2010 and had delivered nearly 40% cumulative gains. 11% down. 2025. The biggest drop in a half a century. And it doesn't help us that energy costs, grocery bills are all also near record highs. The United States government has now reached a new record high at debt. And they're now paying more annually in debt than ever before. And it's an exponential increase. So it only gets worse. These are not the signs of a good economy. And I won't go off onto this story now, but it's coming up. Understand this as well. When you hear these stories, specifically about these illegal alien truckers getting jobs, or the illegal alien workers on the farms, whatever it is, you know that's a sign of a bad economy, right? Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to mention it, but it is. The only reason these trucking companies or whoever it is hiring illegal workers is because it's cheap and they can't afford otherwise. They can't afford to pay the American worker. And the American worker is not willing to work for minimum wage or less. That wasn't the American dream. That wasn't the deal. All of these signs are the signs of a bad economy. But you don't need to hear it from me. You already know what it's like out there. You're already paying your bills, paying your taxes. You know what the cost of living is. These are all signs of a bad economy. And there's no amount of the economy's doing great, we're in the golden age, that is going to change that. But if you're speaking to Wall Street, if you're speaking to the billionaire class, if you're speaking to the military-industrial complex benefactors, then yeah, you are doing greater than ever. That is true. But if you're the average American, it could be tougher than ever. So it is insulting when they say greatest economy ever. The Chinese response continues. China state oil majors suspend Russian oil buys due to sanctions. So this stuff is all right after the Russian sanctions from Trump. And now this is China also trying to play Russia into their hands. So China's like, hey, we can help you or we can hurt you. It's like, hey, we can help you over here. But don't forget we can hurt you too. And if you want to get everything from us, you better put a ring on it. It's like, hey, you know what? We don't mind maybe getting into bed with you. We don't mind maybe getting into bed with you and fooling around a little bit. But if you want our full commitment, Russia, we're going to need to know. We need to know you're in this for the long haul against America. We need to know that you're in this for the long run against the dollar and against U.S. energy. So we'll get into bed with you. We'll fiddle around a little bit. We'll have some fun. Be a good time. But if you really want us to go all the way, we're going to need to know. So that's what China is doing now. Now, I anticipate eventually there will be a meeting between Trump and Putin. Let's see if Lavrov can still get a meeting with a Trump delegation and maybe get this meeting back on. But I don't anticipate, I think now that these new dominoes have fallen, I think Russia and I think Putin will kind of sit back down and reevaluate things and say, all right. And really the main question for Putin might be, do I even feel like I can do a good faith deal with the United States of America? And it's not even about Trump. Putin has been in power for decades, folks. He knows he's going to have to deal with somebody after President Trump. He knows there'll be another president that he'll have to deal with. And he might not trust them. Whereas Xi Jinping might be around for another 20 years. So you have to consider these things too. But I anticipate Russia is not going to decide where it wants to go geopolitically until Putin meets again with Trump. I think Putin still wants to come to the table with the United States of America, wants to have a good relationship and partnership with the United States of America. And he might even like and trust President Trump. But he knows he's not going to be dealing with Trump for much longer. So how can Trump make any assurances? But I think Putin, who's pretty well known to be patient and pretty steady-handed with this stuff. So I think Russia will now just reevaluate things, go into a holding pattern, and give it one more shot with the United States before it decides it wants to lay down with China. That's what I anticipate. And I think it'll probably be a couple months before we get a good idea about how all that's going to shake out. The French are going to make their citizens pay global taxes. Now, let me just read this, and I got a headline for you here, and then I'm going to tell you what I think is going on. French citizens to pay global taxes. I think this is a French journalist. Well, anyway, Alex Racuso reporting here from Citizen X. France just officially proposed global taxation for the national budget of 2026. French citizens will pay taxes on their global income if they move to a region with a tax 40% lower than France's. I've been warning you, European countries are bankrupt and will try to seize your assets. French lawmakers vote to hike tax on American tech giants. President Trump has warned he would retaliate against any move that targeted U.S. companies. French lawmakers have voted in favor of a five-fold increase on the taxation of tech giants in France amid ongoing negotiations in the country's 2026 budget. And it goes on and on and on. Here's a bunch of wonk. So let me tell you what I think is going on when you read between the lines with this deal. It actually looks like the French, in a certain way, in their own little weird, kooky French way, because it's being perceived as it's like a global carbon tax or something. It's being perceived like, oh, this is the French liberal government making them pay for some world government. No. My interpretation is that the French are actually kind of trying to mimic what Trump is doing here. And they're saying, if you're a French company or you're an individual in France and you're making money in a global or an international company, or you've taken your company global or international, they're basically going to make you pay a tax for that. So in other words, it sounds to me like the French lawmakers are trying to tax French out of leaving the country, out of sending their business out of the country. That's what it sounds like to me. That's what it seems like the real agenda here is. So it's kind of like the opposite of what our politicians did to us when they raised corporate taxes and regulations to such a steep degree that the companies moved to China, or wherever else to manufacture so they could get around the regulatory burdens, get around the tax burdens. It seems like France is doing the opposite, and they're trying to tax you. They're trying to incentivize you to stay in France, keep the money in France instead of going elsewhere. That's my interpretation. Now, Viktor Orban confronted the European Union. Today, we are not under German occupation. Brussels couldn't occupy Budapest. Hungary will stay out of the war at all costs. I wish we had leaders that sounded like this. Now, if I play this, I'm going to keep it on mute. He's not speaking English, but I can read the subtitles here. Today, we are not under German occupation. Brussels has not been able to occupy Budapest. Today, we are not an empire's ammunition, who they use as a bullet catcher in the front lines. We are in charge of our circumstances. Please remember, in the First World War, we lost 660,000 people. In the Second World War, we lost 850,000 lives. This is 1.5 million people. If they didn't die then, and their children and grandchildren could have been born today, we wouldn't need to worry about population decline. This, again, cannot happen. In the First and Second Great Wars, we couldn't. But from the current one, we will stay out. And a roaring applause from the audience there in Budapest. I wish we had a leader like this. I wish we had a leader that talked like this and then backed it up. Trump used to talk like this. This is how Trump used to address the American people. Not anymore. Certainly doesn't anymore. Viktor Orban, rising to the occasion, speaking common sense, speaking for the common man. Not just in Hungary, but in all of Europe, I would imagine, and the West. We're sick of dying in these wars. Let our people go. Save our future people. For the people of Europe, for the people of America. Free our people from the burden and the cost of life of these wars. Now, this was asked of President Trump yesterday when he was meeting with the head of NATO, Liam Cosgrove. And it's a very fair question, as Trump has to admit to. But it addresses the fact that despite this ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine, the Ukrainian people do not even support it.
President, thank you, Mr. President. Liam Cosgrove with Zero Hedge. My question is actually for the Secretary General.
Yes.
Mr. Secretary, I don't know if you've seen this, but polling out of Ukraine shows a massive collapse in Ukrainian support for the war. A Gallup poll had just 23%. That's less than a quarter. Zelensky came out today praising President Trump's proposal for freezing the front lines of battle as part of a ceasefire. He said that's a good compromise. So people view your coming here as, you're lobbying the U.S. government to continue its involvement in the war. You're obviously lobbying for more NATO weapons to be sent to Ukraine, but Ukrainians themselves don't want to fight the war. So how do you justify that morally?
Well, I'm lobbying only for one thing, and that is to make sure that we end this war. And I don't have to lobby the president because we totally agree on this. And this is what he has been doing from day one. Everything he could do to break the deadlock with Putin, get the dialogue going, dialoguing also with Zelensky, and getting this war done. It's crucial. And the fact that the US is now supplying weapons into Ukraine, paid for by allies, is extremely important. And that's now happening since 2-3 months. About 2 billion moving into Ukraine.
The war hasn't wound down. Why do you think that'll wind it down now?
What do you mean?
You think more weapons will wind down the war?
No, I mean, there's more to be done. So what you need, what the president said this weekend, stop where you are, to basically do a ceasefire and then have all your discussions about territory and whatever. But first, stop the war. This is what you said on Friday. and on Sunday. We
It's a
have to
war. I mean, your question's really a fair one. It's a war that should have never started.
And
And
it
you
has to
know,
be
you know
ended.
how I feel
And now
about
it
it.
has
But
to
it's
be
a war
ended.
that should have never started.
So I think, again, I think Trump is just leveraging whatever he can right now. He's playing the hand he was dealt. But notice the NATO chief there just totally dodges the question and then gaslights you. Yeah, we need to stop the war and we need to lower the temperature. So we're sending billions in military aid into the region. It just gets burned. That's all it does. Hey, we need to put out the fire. So we're going to throw more kindling and gas on it. It's basically what he just said. It's despicable. It's disgusting. And quite frankly, it's disgusting that Trump continues our involvement. It's not me making excuses, folks. I'm just telling you what he's doing. He's just leveraging it. It's gross. It's disgusting. I hate it. It's globalism. It's deep state politics. But sure, call it in Trump's defense. But in Trump's defense, this is the hand he was dealt. So he's playing the hand he was dealt. But at least he recognizes that the war is unimportant. But here's NATO. I mean, this is ridiculous from Root here, the NATO chief. Says, yeah, we need to cool things down and stop the war, so we're going to send more military aid in, which obviously is only going to make it worse. It's just such a joke. And good for the reporter for firing back on that. All right. So first Trump was in Israel, and then Vance was in Israel. Now Marco Rubio is in Israel meeting with Netanyahu. So, you know, you're not allowed to talk about it. And I've got some other commentary. It's like half of me doesn't even want to go into it because I'm just so sick of it. I'm so sick of dealing with these disingenuous political pundits in America that sit here and throw their arms in the air when you want to have a foreign policy discussion or a geopolitical opinion. And they throw their arms in the air and they're like, oh, geez, it's always Israel. Like, well, are you trying to tell the American people? Are you trying to tell people in the American media that we can't talk about Israel when they're all over our foreign policy? Our leaders are there all the time, literally. And they have one of the most powerful and influential lobbying groups in our country, but you're not supposed to talk about it. And then when you refuse to shut up, when you refuse to stop talking about the biggest influence over our foreign policy and the country that our leaders visit more than any other country on earth, probably combined, and they tell you, shut up, stop talking about it, it's not real, and then you don't stop talking about it, then we all know what they do next. They call you names, they label you, they smear you. It's because they want you dead. It's the woke right. They want you dead. And they're so confused. It's funny to watch these people on the woke right that are just stunned. They're just flabbergasted that you won't shut up. They thought they could bully us. They thought they could intimidate us and threaten us and scare us into submission, but they don't understand. You realize that we've already been here with you? Like, this isn't new. We dealt with you guys in 2016. We defeated you in 2016. You tried the exact same crap then, and we beat you. And you sent the exact same agents after us then, and we beat you. You already sent Ben Shapiro after us in 2016. You already sent Mark Levin after us in 2016. You already sent the entire neocon Zionist political alliance against us in 2016 and against Donald Trump in 2015 and 2016. And we beat you. We already beat you. And I get it. Right now, you could argue you've won, or you think you're winning because you have total control over this administration, more so than the 2015, 2016 Trump supporters. I sacrificed that. I admit that. I tip my cap. I say good game. But that doesn't mean we're going to quit. This is just another quarter. This isn't new. But what I've noticed now is that they're stepping up their volatility. They're stepping up their vitriol. And that's because they're scared that they're going to lose again. That's why they're even more panicked and spending 20 times as much money against us than they did in 2015 and 2016. Because they're scared that they're losing long term, which is way more important than the next 3 years. And if the neocons and the Israeli lobby lose the right-wing support for intervention in the Middle East, specifically the war in Iraq, the war in Afghanistan, the coming war they want in Iran or Jordan or Lebanon or anywhere else, or the Gaza Strip, wherever it is the Israeli lobbyists want the United States of America to go to war at next, if they can't get that done and they lose us, well, then they have to rethink their entire geopolitical strategy and their entire relationship with the world, which right now is obviously not very good. But it's so disingenuous. It's so slimy to sit here and act confused and shrug your shoulders and furrow your eyebrow. Like, why do you always talk about Israel? Oh, gee, I don't know. Our whole Congress goes there when they're on recess. All of our leaders go there and kiss the wall. You just had Trump, Vance, and Rubio. They're all there for a week plus long in succession. We all see the Israeli lobby's impact on the political conversation and Washington, D.C. And it's just like, no. You're not allowed to talk about the biggest elephant in the room. We just shove it in your face. We just wave the flag in your face. We just bring all of your political leaders and influencers to Israel. We just do all of that. But you're not allowed to talk about it. And if you do talk about it, you're a crazy conspiracy theorist because none of it's going on. It's not happening. So don't talk about it. As U.S. fumes over annexation bill, Prime Minister and Rubio give a very brief, upbeat remarks in Jerusalem. Don't talk about Israel. There is no Israel involvement. Nobody goes to Israel. It's just some small country. It's ridiculous that you ever talk about Israel. Can I talk about Israel when Trump's there? Can I talk about Israel when Vance is there? Can I talk about Israel when Rubio's there? Can I talk about Israel when all of these foreign influencers attack me and then fly to Israel? Can I talk about Israel when they get $30 billion in foreign aid? When am I allowed to talk about Israel? I'm just curious. Since you guys are the gatekeepers, since you guys are now the arbiters of what conservatives get to discuss and talk about, can you tell me when it's okay to talk about Israel? When is it okay? Who has to go and kiss the wall that hasn't yet before I can talk about it? How many times does Netanyahu have to come to the White House before I can talk about it? How many Israeli flags do I have to see in Congress before I can talk about it? How much money does Israel has to spend on digital influence before I'm allowed to talk about it? I'm just curious, since you guys are the arbiters here, since you guys are now the gatekeepers and you decide who gets to talk and who doesn't and what they get to talk about, when do we get to talk about Israel? I'm just curious. Is it when we bomb Iran? Is it when we continue to send them military support? I'm just curious. I'm asking, when do we get to talk about Israel? Or is it just a no-go zone? We're just never allowed to talk about it ever, which of course is not total proof that they have control over our foreign policy or our politicians or these digital influencers, right? Right. It's total proof that none of that exists since we're not allowed to talk about it. That just proves that there's nothing there. So when are we allowed to talk about it? I'm just curious. What about as Christians when Israel blows up a church? What about as pro-lifers when Israel shoots children in the head by the hundreds? I'm just asking you guys. You guys are in charge now. So when do we get to talk about Israel? Or is it a total off-limits thing? Nobody's ever allowed to talk about it ever. It's off-limits. Which is not suspicious at all. I'm just wondering, when do you get to talk about it? Threatening the peace deal. Trump administration chides Israel Knesset vote on West Bank. Now, I've got some audio here from Trump and Vance. This was actually Trump a month ago when asked about this. Here's President Trump when asked about the West Bank last month.
Did you promise leaders this week that you would not allow Israel to annex the West Bank? Is that something that you
I will not allow Israel to annex the West Bank. No, I will not allow it. It's not going to happen.
Did you speak with Netanyahu about this directly?
Yeah, but I'm not going to allow it. Whether I spoke to him or not, I did. But I'm not allowing Israel to annex the West Bank. There's been enough. It's time to stop now, okay?
Did you promise leaders this week that
Except they never did stop. They never will stop. Isn't that obvious? Isn't that the point? Now, here's Vance earlier today after hearing of the vote for Israel to annex the West Bank. Here's what J.D. Vance said before returning home.
West Bank, sorry. Yeah, go ahead. We'll do it. Yeah. The West Bank vote yesterday that took place while you were in the country.
Oh, yeah, that was weird. I was sort of confused by that. Now, I actually asked somebody about it, and they told me that it was a symbolic vote, some symbolic vote to recognize or a symbolic vote to annex the West Bank. I mean, what I would say to that is when I asked about it, somebody told me that it was a political stunt, that it had no practical significance. It was purely symbolic. I mean, look, if it was a political stunt, it was a very stupid political stunt, and I personally take some insult to it. The West Bank is not going to be annexed by Israel. The policy of the Trump administration is that the West Bank will not be annexed by Israel. That will continue to be our policy. And if people want to take symbolic votes, they can do that. But we certainly weren't happy about it. Thank you.
You know, I really like J.D. Vance, and he comes off as a very genuine person, and I believe he is. Others don't, but that's all right. He comes off very genuine. But you know, it is funny to hear him respond. And it's just like, come on, man. Yeah, that was confusing. That was surprising. What? Are you the only one surprised that you keep getting lied to? Are you the only one surprised that Israel has one agenda and one agenda only, and anything else they tell you is eventually going to be a lie? It's like, what is so shocking here? Really? You're shocked? You're surprised? It's the same thing every time. Guess we'll see what happens. But Trump and Vance both expressing frustration over the annexation. Now, this is all face value. Could all of this just be the framework for what's coming next? Saudi Arabia's Mohammed bin Salman to visit White House on November 18th. So could they just be building a little narrative here ahead of MBS coming to D.C.? Maybe it's a little of both. Maybe there is stuff happening and the Israelis still want to annex the West Bank against the wishes of the Trump administration. Or maybe they're adding a little drama and a little discussion point ahead of Mohammed bin Salman coming to the White House as early as next month, potentially. The drama continues. And none of it's about America, you know? None of it is America first. None of it is really what you voted for, but it's what you're getting. I don't even know. I guess I'll continue with this. By the way, in Gaza, they haven't been able to get access to shoes in a couple of years, and they finally have. They've had these shoe repairmen basically trying to repair whatever shoes people have, if they even have any. They finally just got shoes back into Gaza. So the people that are walking around through the rubble are actually wearing shoes now. So, okay, maybe you like that. But not if you're Laura Loomer. She probably wants those children walking around barefoot. And let me just be clear here. I consider Laura a friend. I've known her for a long time. I still like Laura. But it's pretty clear that Laura has some problems with hate. She says, I'm really enjoying watching more and more people every day come to hate Islam as much as I do. I'm glad you're honest about it, Laura. I'm glad that you're honest that you have hate in your heart. And I'll give you credit because at least you admit it. You know, some of the other individuals that express the same sentiment as you do, like a Levin or a Josh Hammer, I mean, I guess they've come out and said that white people are inherently racist. So they have let a little bit of their hatred show, but they won't say they hate white people. They just say, oh, you're white, so you're inherently racist. But no, you just come out and say you hate Islam. So at least you're honest. I'll give you that. I just don't get it. And by the way, that's not what I'm seeing. I'm not seeing people hate Islam more than ever. And I think that if anything is dishonest about this, neither are you. In fact, what you're seeing is people hating Jews more than ever, which is also very sad. I think that's what you're really seeing. And you're not the only one seeing it because you guys talk about it all the time. So no, it's actually sad that there is more hate now. There's more hate. But don't you see that this is the problem? When you put more hate on top of hate, do you know what you get? You get more hate and you get more war. And this is the problem, folks. Americans are sick of it. We don't harbor hatred for anyone in our hearts. But now you have these groups, they want you to hate with them. They want you in their hate groups. It's literally a hate group, folks. You know, you hear about these hate crimes. Isn't that ironic? Well, when you admit you hate somebody, wouldn't that suggest that heads in the direction of a hate crime? Now, I'm not saying it's a crime to hate somebody. You can hate whoever you want. But the hate seems to be coming from these directions that are not in America's interests. The hate seems to be coming from a certain part of the world that is on the other side of the earth from America. Seems to be where all the hate is coming from. And the average American is sick of the hate. They want nothing to do with the hate. And they know the hate has resulted in bloodshed. So we're done with the hate. But you guys aren't. You guys are more filled with hate than I've ever seen in my life. And that's why today the woke right, I would say, is more dangerous than the woke left. Because you're fueled by hate and you're in power. The woke left is fueled by hate, but they're not in power. The woke right is fueled by hate and they are in power. And they love to drop bombs on people. They love it so much that they sign their signature on the bombs. So I get it from Laura's perspective. People hate her, and now she has to deal with death threats and everything else. I get it. And I don't know if it's true that Laura can't own or carry a firearm. I don't know if that's true. She should be able to. She has credible death threats against her. She should be able to defend herself. But I guess, you know, there's laws in this country that they take away your Second Amendment right. I don't know if any of that's true, but Laura should be able to defend herself. Laura does get a lot of hate, but then it's just breeding even more hate. So she gets hate, and now she exudes hate. And it's toxic, folks. And it's toxic. And this is what's driving the woke right. So just like the woke left was driven by hatred, now the woke right is driven by hatred, and the woke right is in power. And we all saw what the woke left did with their power. Don't think the woke right won't do the exact same thing at their enemies. It's the exact same core energy, folks. It has a different color. It has a different opinion, ideology, but it's the same core energy, and it's the same core direction with the same core results. And all day long, as Laura is expressing her hatred for Muslims, remember how people on the right used to flip it. And whenever you'd have things like Black Lives Matter or black this or black that, the people on the right would always flip it and they'd say, what about white lives matter? Or what if I said whites this? Or what if I said whites that? Or what if I said blacks instead of whites here? See how it goes? Well, it's funny you don't apply that same logic to Jews and Muslims. Some of the things that people like Laura Loomer say about Muslims, if anybody said that about Jews, they'd probably be in jail. So you're okay flipping it when it's whites versus blacks, and you can point out the double standards there using the language to do it, using the rhetoric, flipping in white and black to show how it can't be applied universally, how it's a double standard. But then if somebody talked about Jews the way you talk about Muslims, they'd go to jail. So you know what I always say, if it can't be applied universally, it's not logic, it's propaganda. And I'm just sick of the hatred. I fight for love of country. I fight for love of family. I fight for love of life. I don't have hatred in my heart. I don't come from a place of hatred. And that's not to say that hatred isn't a natural thing or even a temporary necessity at times. But when you harbor hatred in your heart, you become a sick and diseased person. And that's the truth. And you exude this sickness. You exude this cancer of hatred. You exude it physically. You exude it emotionally. You exude it spiritually. And it becomes extremely toxic. And isn't it funny? It's being pointed out by this account, I Am Blakely. Here's all the AIPAC posts about when Hamas releases the hostages, the war will be over. And they were all posting that. We all remember. The war could end tomorrow if Hamas would release the hostages. The war would be over if Hamas would release the hostages. We can stop the killing if Hamas would just release the hostages. And then as soon as Hamas released the hostages, what did they say? Kill them all. Turn it into glass. Blow them all up. It's not our fight, folks. But maybe now you see why people in that region have a trust issue. You know what I mean? Maybe now you see why there's so many trust issues in the Middle East. Hey, just release the hostages, all right? And we'll stop the bombing. Okay, fine. Here's the hostages. All right, blow the whole place up. Turn it into glass. Take the West Bank. Take it all. Wait a second. You said if we turned over the hostages and signed this peace deal, that none of this would happen. Yeah, I know. We lied. Kill them all. Take all the land. See why there's a trust issue in the region? And then there's this disingenuous conversation that's had, and it's all being aimed at Tucker Carlson, but it's expanding. With the likes of, here's Max Abrams, and he's talking about how Jews can't gather in peace anymore, which I don't doubt. I was encouraging Jews that attend synagogue, you better have armed security. You better arm yourselves. I'd have armed security. I would have private security. I'd have my own self-defense mechanisms. Absolutely. I don't doubt that for 1 second. But that's not because of the right wing that has a foreign policy disagreement. That's the same left wing. This isn't a right-wing issue on foreign policy. This is a left-wing issue on violent left-wing radical terrorism that also just happens to hate Jews or hate Israel. Just like they hate Christians. Just like they hate conservatives. Just like they hate Charlie Kirk. There's that key word, hate. Now who's exuding hate? So I have no doubt that especially if you're a Jewish leader and you have a study group, whatever, I have no doubt that security is at top of mind, and rightfully so. But let's not conflate a foreign policy disagreement with violent left-wing terrorism. That's what you guys are dealing with, just like everybody else. It's not Tucker Carlson. It's not Nick Fuentes. It's not Candace Owens. That's a foreign policy disagreement. You're dealing with the same left-wing terrorism that we're dealing with. But you're so desperate to remove the voices that have a foreign policy disagreement that you're now trying to lump us in with the violent left-wingers. And when you understand why they all just backed Cuomo over Sliwa, you understand where this whole issue comes from, folks. You understand where the whole issue comes from. Why did the Israeli lobbyists and their big digital influencers back Andrew Cuomo? Because at the end of the day, if you take all the political issues, every single one of them, including all of the political issues on the right, let's say the conservative side, Israel is still more important to them than every single one. And that's why they backed Cuomo instead of Sliwa. Because they would rather have a left-wing radical Democrat in there than a conservative if that left-wing radical Democrat was pro-Israel. Do you understand that? That's why they backed Cuomo and threw Sliwa under the bus. Because they don't really, at the end of the day, they might care about conservative politics. They might be conservative. They might prefer right-wing leadership. But at the end of the day, their number one concern is Israel. And they will vote for a Democrat 10 out of 10 times if that Democrat is pro-Israel over a conservative Republican. And you just watched it happen in New York City. And now Max Abrams is comparing Mamdani to Tucker Carlson, but saying that Tucker Carlson is worse. So no, this is an illegitimate conflation of left-wing radical terrorism that hates everybody and targets everybody versus right-wingers that have a foreign policy dispute. But you know that the right-wingers that have a legitimate foreign policy disagreement and are winning in the foreign policy debate, you know that they are actually a bigger threat to your key issue, which is Israel. So now you're attacking the right that is actually no threat to you. There's no violent threat from the right. There's no targeting from the right. The right is a target just like you are. But now you're being extremely dishonest and disingenuous and saying, oh, Tucker is the threat, not the violent left-wing terrorists that have been the threat for 10 years. No, it's now the peaceful right-wing conservatives that have a foreign policy disagreement. That's the real threat. But you know that's a lie. The real threat is that we're winning the debate on foreign policy. And so now you're trying to purge us from the conversation by lumping us in with the extremist left. But it's not working. And everybody sees through it. And I have no doubt that you're going to win this round. I'm already tipping my cap and saying you guys are winning this round. I'm already tipping my cap. I already did it the other day. I'm tipping my cap. I'm saying you guys did it. You rallied the big money. You rallied the Adelsons and everybody. You guys won. You did. You guys are getting everything you want. The Trump supporters around since 2015 and the American patriots that have suffered in the streets for all this stuff, you've now thrown us under the bus. You've kicked us to the curb. You've given us the middle finger, and you're rubbing it in our face. So I tip my cap. You guys won with this administration, but you're losing the longer battle. You're losing the longer war, and you know it. Everybody can see it. And I think that you're kind of panicked about it, quite frankly. It's kind of what it looks like. Now, well, I'll close out the hour here. We're going to get into, I'm going to close out some of this commentary as it ties into the mayor's race, because I do have a little bit more on that. So I'm going to tie this back into the mayor's race, and then a funny little angle with the NBA betting ring, the rigging of games news that just broke. I'm actually going to kind of tie it into that. So we'll do that here as we close out the second hour, and I'll get into the rest of this news. And it looks like there's some other breaking news as far as involvement in Venezuela now. B-1 bombers near Venezuela, land strike soon. Yep. What was yesterday's show headline, guys? It's war. It's war in a time of peace.
You're listening to the Owen Report on the Win Network.
Navigating between the sane and insane. It's the Owen Report with Owen Schroyer.
All right. Third and final hour here of the Owen Report today. I've got a lot of other news to cover. I will get back into this situation over Israel, because it looks like we have some more breaking news on that. They may have gone too far with this vote to annex the West Bank. That might have been a bridge too far for the Trump administration. We shall see. My producer Dominic might want to pop in here with some breaking news. Dominic, if you want to break in with that news, why don't you get yourself set up? We'll put you on the screen. In the meantime, this is just breaking on the Drudge Report. Land strike soon. B-1 bombers near Venezuela. U.S. sends B-1 bombers near Venezuela, ramping up military pressure. The flights signal possible widening of U.S. campaign against cartels and alleged drug traffickers. This is wild. Trump says U.S. will shift to strikes on land after boat attacks. Guys, like, just don't fool yourselves. Just be honest, okay? Trump does not deserve the Nobel Peace Prize, all right? And you can like what he's doing. It's okay. You can like what he's doing. You can support the boat strikes. You can support the Iran strikes. You can support it. If you like it, that's fine. I don't like it. You can like it. That's fine. Just don't become a liar. Don't become a sellout. Don't become a shill. Don't become a propaganda agent. He does not deserve the Nobel Peace Prize. And that's not even to say that he's not trying for peace. That's not even, I do believe Trump wants peace. I believe that. I believe he is genuinely trying to achieve peace in some of the toughest peace deals on the planet right now. I do believe that. But there is no peace. And he's called for strikes. He's supporting wars. He's launched strikes that kill people. I'm just sorry. That's not deserving of a Nobel Peace Prize. If Trump had never called for any strikes that killed anybody, and he was getting the peace deals done, then you could say he's deserving of a Nobel Peace Prize. But I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's not. Let's just be honest. When you call for strikes that kill people and you send money and weapons into war zones that aren't even your wars, you don't deserve the Nobel Peace Prize. I'm sorry. So the day where Trump stops greenlighting strikes that kill people, and the day Trump stops sending weapons and money into wars and continues the peace deal negotiations, then I will become the loudest supporter for Trump to get the Nobel Peace Prize. I'll become the loudest cheerleader you've ever seen. But he's not doing that. So, sorry, we're not going to play these games. So that's breaking news now. The NBA gambling scandal. Did you know sports are rigged? Who would have known? Never could have predicted that. Truly stunning. Now, remember yesterday? Remember you had the Hot Girls for Cuomo with Emily Austin? Less than 24 hours, or maybe It's got to be less than 24 hours. We can look at the timeline. One day after Emily Austin launches Hot Girls for Cuomo, she flies to Israel. Well, wait a second. I thought you were campaigning for Cuomo. I thought you just started a new show. What's up? Emily, what's going on here? I'm confused. I was starting to get into it. I was starting to like Hot Girls for Cuomo. I was starting to say, all right, I'm with you. Hot Girls for Cuomo. Let's meet up. I'm in. I'm the male ambassador for Hot Girls for Cuomo. I'm interested. I'm in. I'm curious. And then I look up and you're in Israel. I thought you were campaigning for Cuomo. I thought you were leading the Hot Girls for Cuomo campaign. She literally just launched a new show off of the Hot Girls for Cuomo campaign. Episode 1 of the Emily Austin show with an exclusive interview with Cuomo and launching Hot Girls for Cuomo. And after one day, you're flying to Israel? I was trying to get involved. I was trying to help the effort. Why? Why did Emily Austin fly to Israel after launching Hot Girls for Cuomo? Is she throwing in the towel? Is it over? Is the movement dead already? Right when I was ready? Right when I was gonna get involved? I feel abandoned. As a Hot Girl for Cuomo supporter, I feel abandoned by our leader, Emily Austin. I'm heartbroken. I don't know how to deal with it. But I'm sitting here and I'm wondering, I can't help it. This is just how my mind operates. I'm wondering if there isn't something else going on, is what I'm beginning to wonder. I'm beginning to think there might be something else going on here. Because, of course, this is a big story today. NBA coach and player among those arrested in massive mafia-linked sports rigging and gambling probe. So you had a couple players and coaches and former players. There was a gambling ring, a rigged underground casino and rigged poker games and throwing games and rigging the odds makers and all of this going on. So I'm thinking, okay, the feds have been on this NBA gambling scandal here. Now they're breaking it. Emily Austin flies to Israel. And I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, wait a second. Emily Austin used to be an NBA reporter. Emily Austin used to get access to NBA players. And now, as the NBA gambling ring story is breaking, Emily conveniently flies to Israel, where they are known to protect and harbor criminals. You're an Israeli spy, Israel takes you in and protects you. You're a pedophile, Israel takes you in and protects you. You rig gambling with the NBA, would Israel take you in and protect you too? No, I'm kidding, Emily. I'm kidding, of course. We're just kidding, Emily. We don't think you fled to Israel to avoid any potential involvement in the NBA gambling ring, even though you did used to work with NBA players and cover the NBA. We're just joking, Emily. We're just desperate to get you back. That's all. We're just worried. We're just concerned. We're desperate to get you back because Hot Girls for Cuomo has taken a major beating. And without you, I don't know how it works. And now Cuomo is lower in the polls because you left and went to Israel. He's suffering now, and your guy is going to lose now. So we just need you back. Has nothing to do with the NBA. But if you do want to go gamble on some NBA games, maybe you can give me some advice because I'd have no idea what goes on in that league anymore. I will say this before we bring in producer Dom, though. You know, one of the LeBron is obviously tied into all of this, but it's when you're LeBron James, you're tied into every person in the NBA. So it's kind of hard to involve eventually this connecting to you. So I'm not saying LeBron was involved, but eventually the questions are going to be asked about LeBron. But I will say what's curious is that LeBron is absent right now and he's not playing. It is a little strange. And yes, it is his, I think, 23rd year in the NBA. I can't even imagine how hard it is to get up for 23 straight years. But he just had a long offseason. They're saying it's sciatica. I don't know. The conspiracy theorist inside me just wonders. Just wonders. All right. Producer Dominic joining me now. You think that has Israel finally gone too far with the West Bank annexation? Has the Trump administration finally reached its breaking point in dealing with Netanyahu and his regime in Israel?
Well, let me give you a little update about old LeBron James. Dom Luker just actually reported here about an hour ago that court documents show that LeBron James is actually, in an outside manner, involved in this FBI crackdown on the NBA gambling thing. Apparently, teammates of his were selling his inside injury information, allowing people to bet on player props, allowing people to bet on the team total and the total score of the game. Because obviously, you can figure that if LeBron James is out for the Lakers, they're going to score less points. So, yeah, he's been awfully quiet today, and apparently that's one of the reasons.
And you know, when you understand how the sports world works, it's not, I mean, it's obviously not as corrupt as the political world, but, you know, there's kind of that same aspect of, you know, you can't believe in coincidences. Like LeBron not starting the year for sciatica, this whole gambling thing going down. I get the feeling that there's some high odds that these two things are connected. Now, look, I'll take the stance of LeBron James' defense here and say he might have known none of it was going on. I think that's very plausible that he had no idea what was going on. I would even say it's very plausible that he actually helped the NBA and the FBI bust this deal. That wouldn't surprise me either. But yeah, the LeBron connections are eventually going to get asked about. There's no doubt.
Well, if he helped, he didn't help from the goodness of his heart. He helped because he received a phone call and says, hey, you can either cooperate or you can get, burned by us. But no, I think that, I mean, not to get too much into the sports thing, but, LeBron's old. There's a lot of load management stuff in the NBA these days. Realistically, a lot of times in the beginning of the season, a lot of these type of veteran players sort of sit out, because they want to be fresh for the playoffs if they make it. So I don't think we should speculate too much on the LeBron James situation. But as far as the update on Gaza, actually two things. So Trump earlier today, he didn't say this verbally, but it was in the Time magazine feature that came out earlier this morning. Trump said that he was directly involved with the pager attack on Lebanon that happened, believe it was 7-8 months ago. Very significant and intricate attack. So that was an interesting piece of information. But here we've got from the Times of Israel, a U.S. official quoted that if Netanyahu F's up the deal, Donald Trump will F him over. U.S. President Donald Trump will F Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu if the Israel leader jeopardizes the Gaza ceasefire, according to a U.S. official. So this was coming from Barak Ravid from Axios, who gets a lot of these exclusives. A lot of times people think that he just pushes sort of an Israeli party line, but this was interesting. I'll just read this real quickly. Correspondent Barak Ravid, speaking in Hebrew on Channel 12 Network, says that a U.S. official told him Netanyahu is walking a fine line with President Trump. If he keeps going, he'll F up the Gaza deal, and if he F's up the Gaza deal, Donald Trump will F him over. So we're getting some stronger language out of him. Look, I know my biggest sort of pressure point with Trump right now is that, look, the Trump administration, for all the strong talk they have not displayed the capability to reel in Israel really in any regard. The only time that Israel actually stopped some of their offensive behavior was when they ran out of defensive THAAD missiles that the U.S. supplies. So, I think that we are kind of starting to see for the first time some open resistance, and we'll have to see what actually happens. I predict that Israel will probably win in this battle, but it is interesting to see the development.
Well, I don't think it's that the Trump administration has shown that it can't reel in Israel. I think it's shown that it has no interest. I think it's shown that the Israeli lobbyists are in charge of these decisions, or Trump is at least, going along with what they want. Trump could reel in Israel tomorrow if he wanted to. I don't think there's an interest there. He did seem really frustrated when that question got asked today, though. I haven't seen him that frustrated over a question since the Epstein question was raised a couple months ago that led to all that fallout. He did seem expressly frustrated over that West Bank situation.
So I read a report earlier today from Glenn Greenwald that said that the Israeli Knesset purposefully passed this bill advancing the annexation of the West Bank while JD Vance was there as a slap in the face to show them basically, you guys can say that you're making demands, but ultimately we don't care. And as far as the capability of the United States to actually stop Israel, of course they have the capability. We're funding their operations. We give them, security guarantees. We supply them with the majority of their offensive weapons. Of course we could stop it, but it's in the political interest of Trump ultimately, to protect his donors, to continue to push what they want. And I think that's what the frustration, especially from some of this 2016 and 2020 MAGA coalition has been coming from. So yeah, they could stop them, but this goes along with the whole narrative that many people believe that this administration is largely controlled or they're way too heavily influenced by donor dollars. So
as far as Channel 12 is concerned, it seems like Channel 12 is probably more of an anti-Netanyahu Israeli outlet. The Times of Israel seems to be pretty straight down the line. I'd say they seem to be more centrist. They'll do pro-Netanyahu, anti-Netanyahu, down the middle stuff. Is Channel 12 kind of the anti-Netanyahu outlet there in Israel? Is that your understanding of it?
No, definitely not. So the main television channels in Israel are Channel 12, Channel 13, and Channel 14. I believe that Channel 14 may be a little bit more resistant to Netanyahu, but you have to understand that statistically, even left and right-wing Jewish people in Israel, a lot of them share the same interests as far as most of them support what's been going on as far as Gaza is concerned. The majority of Israelis want to annex the West Bank. The majority of Israelis want there not to be any sort of Palestinian territories whatsoever.
I don't necessarily buy that. It might be a majority, but the polls that I see that say it's like 80 or 70%, I don't believe that. I think that's Western propaganda. I think it's probably, if it is a majority, I think it's 60% or under. I think a lot of that stuff is just propaganda to make Americans think that Netanyahu is more popular in Israel than he actually is.
Well, my friend, you're more entitled to trust your own inclinations, but every single statistical point and every data point shows that, generally speaking, they're in support. And honestly, I mean, given the fact that they've done the things that they've done, they've showed very little restraint and they've been, as brutal as you could possibly be towards, like if you look at the statistics, 50 or 60% of the people that have died have been women and children. So I know what you're saying, and there is a left-wing faction that's against it. A lot of times Orthodox Jews are against it themselves, the guys with the suits and all that stuff. But, I mean, it's a little bit of a dicey situation. I do think it's coming to a head. And I think ultimately I don't expect Trump to really, put the dogs in the kennel, if you will. I don't think he's really going to be able to shut down whatever Israel wants to do. However, I do think that if they take it much further, you might see some more of these sort of outbursts on television.
And I always have to just throw in this for the conversation, because I think that Trump is looking at the trade situation more than anything else. And he might not always allude to that, but I wonder how much of this has to do with the Ben Gurion Canal and Trump just thinking, look, if I can somehow thread this needle and at least stop the war. Not everybody's going to get what they want, but if I can stop the war, keep us in good graces with Israel, maybe we can make the Ben Gurion Canal a $1 billion plus profit center for the United States in trade. But if he sabotages good relations with Israel, maybe he's afraid that can't happen. And if he's looking for a global trade domination against China's Belt Road Initiative, that he's thinking about Greenland. He's thinking about the Ben Gurion Canal. He's thinking about the Panama Canal. So I always wonder if that's not in the back of Trump's mind. And he kind of just has to sit here. It's like, if that's what Trump really wants, and he's just going to have to sit here and deal with Netanyahu. And maybe the Knesset figures that too. And they're like, hey, at the end of the day, Trump wants the Ben Gurion Canal. So maybe we can kind of keep getting away with stuff because he really wants that more than anything else. I don't know. I'm just looking at other avenues to try to explain.
Let me throw one more thing out there. And this is something that much of the public is not aware of, because you kind of have to be pretty deep in U.S.-Israel relations, which I consider myself to be. So Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff have billion-dollar business deals with the Saudis, with UAE. They have Eric Trump has a real estate development, a multi-billion-dollar golf course that he's building in Saudi Arabia. It's one of the first tourist destinations where Americans are expected to be visiting quite frequently. Saudi Arabia is doing things in 2026 like legalizing drinking alcohol. They're legalizing women not wearing burqas. They're doing lots of things to bring in American wealth. And as you know, with the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund, which owns like the Live Golf Tour, they're involved in several other, I believe they may actually even have some involvement with the UFC. But the reason why Trump is getting upset is because it is true that we are getting closer with these Gulf nations, particularly Qatar, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia. And the fact that Israel attacked Qatar, even though it was a Hamas meeting or a meeting with some of these Arab leaders, that was a big deal to Trump because of the fact that we are significantly getting closer to these countries. As you know, the largest or one of the most important strategic military bases for the United States for CENTCOM in the Middle East is located in Qatar. And the fact that Israel took that step, they lied about it. Trump was not able to notify Qatar until after the attack took place. So I think that was the big sticking point. And truthfully, I don't think it's just that, Trump is being so loyal to his new friends, but they have significant business interests in the region, and Trump doesn't want Israel to screw him over on that. And it's understandable, honestly.
Yeah.
Good insight, right? Good insight.
At the bottom of the barrel, money talks. Who's gonna have the biggest paycheck?
And that's the reason why you never hear anybody say this, but the most important thing we can do for our country is outlaw outside money, whether that be from multinational corporations, whether that be from foreign entities. We can't have lobbying and the donor class control our entire government. And unfortunately, that's exactly what we have now. The biggest issue is most of these people are frauds. Almost everybody that serves in Congress, whether it be in the House or the Senate, their primary purpose is to enrich themselves, to raise their profile. None of these people will vote for legislation that will effectively fix our country because they are the primary beneficiaries of these completely corrupt and scandalous policies. So we need foundational change. And all of these fake influencers that run around and kiss Trump's ass all day, they do nothing but actually make the problem significantly worse. So I encourage you guys, if you know me or if any of my friends that are in the industry see this, we're on to you. And pretty soon these shows will be about you. They're not going to be about Trump. They're going to be about you.
Well, I actually have a clip that we can cover on that. And we'll be hearing from you before the end of the show with an announcement at owenschroyer.store. We got a little announcement for the audience today. Producer Dom checking in. I want to play this clip since he brought that up. They were talking about that. The business deals, the real estate deals that are going down with these peace deals. They talked about this on 60 Minutes with Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff. And I don't want to assume the worst here, but the way that this was said in this 60 Minutes clip sounds really bad, folks. So I won't leap to any conclusions, but if you take what was said at face value and think that it's exactly as it sounds, it doesn't sound good.
Part of the plan is the reconstruction, the rebuilding of Gaza. And you're builders, you've been in real estate. As you said, it's extremely complex. Tell us more about the plan and how much it's going to cost, where's the money going to come from, and who's going to award the contracts? 3 questions.
I think it's going to cost a lot of money.
What's a lot of money?
The estimates are in the $50 billion range. It might be a little bit less. It might be a little bit more. I happen to think that that's not a lot of money in that region. You have governments that are going to jump on in. And
so the Middle East countries are going to provide the money.
But you'll see European participation and so forth. I think the beginning of this plan is how to get it going. And that's what me and Jared work on.
Now, what he's about to say is the reason that I wanted to play this clip, but think about what he just said, though. And this is a lot less, let's say, potentially scandalous than what he's about to say, if it's not just bad communication. So, in other words, Israel just demolished essentially an entire civilization, and now the rest of the world has to pay for it. Did you hear that? So the Gulf nation states are going to pay for it. America is going to pay for it. Europe is going to pay for it. At least $50 billion, but not Israel. Not the country that actually did the damage, not the country that gets $30 billion in foreign aid from the United States of America in response to this. No, every other country on earth has to pay for the annihilation that Israel just engaged in. Why is that? Shouldn't Israel pay to rebuild everything that they've destroyed? Why do I have to pay for it? Why does Europe have to pay for it? Why do the Gulf nation states have to pay for it? And then is Israel going to get that land too? If that's how this deal goes down, that is outrageous. That is outrageous if that's how this goes down. Israel should have to pay for the entire reconstruction project. And if they're not going to pay a dime, then they shouldn't be allowed any access or any influence over that region ever again.
All the time. The money raising we think is the easy part. We think that happens relatively quickly, but it's the master plan, and we're working with a group of people who have been working on master plans for the last 2 years.
So
They've been working on master plans for the last 2 years? Folks, we're only 2 years removed from October 7th. Again, I think Steve Witkoff is coming from a good place. I do think he's a good person, and I do think he wants to accomplish peace. I do believe that. But that does not sound good, Steve. And you're sitting there with Kushner, who wasn't supposed to be involved in this administration, has no official role in this administration, but his fingerprints are all over this deal. This is not a good sound. This is not a good look, Mr. Witkoff.
Plans already.
We have plans already. We have a master plan already. And by the way, and Jared's been pushing this, and we're working together on it. And I think if the world saw the progress so far, they'd be pretty impressed.
It even looks like Kushner gets a little nervous after Witkoff says we've had a master plan for 2 years. Again, folks, it could just be bad communication. I don't assume the worst about Witkoff at all. Quite the opposite, actually. I tend to lean on the side of Witkoff is a good guy. I don't know about Kushner. A little more suspicion towards Kushner. The master plan for 2 years? What do you mean? Was the stand down a part of that? Because that doesn't sound good. That doesn't sound good. So is that just bad communication? Is that a slip of the tongue? Is that an admission? That's pretty wild. Now listen to this from Senator John Kennedy. And a lot of people kind of missed, I think, the real story here. A lot of people get sucked into this vacuum on political issues where it's like things like China or Israel or Trump, let's say, they have this gravity. And it's like everything ends up being about that. It's either, oh, this is all about Trump, or this is all about Israel, or this is all about China. And they lose their sense of the different dynamics. They lose their sense of the different complexities. And I noticed it with this Senator Kennedy clip. Now, when you listen to what he says, it's really easy to get sucked into the gravitational pull of China. But actually, when you understand what he's saying, you realize that it's actually not about China at all. It's China doing something, but this isn't about the gravitational pull to focus on China. Listen to what Senator Kennedy says here about some of these foreign conflicts.
She is calling on a lot of, she could end that war in Ukraine and settle the Middle East tomorrow. Tomorrow.
Really?
All he'd have to do is call Putin and say, Putin, I want it stopped. And if Putin says, no, all she will say, look, I don't mean to embarrass you, but if you don't stop it, I'll punish you the rest of your natural life and you won't be running Russia anymore. And he would stop. Same thing with Iran. He can back them off in a phone call. But I'm telling you, I've seen the classified and unclassified information. He's behind a lot of this. And it started when President Obama drew a red line in Syria and Assad crossed it. It started when President Obama let Russia take Crimea. You think Russia didn't check President Xi in China before he did that? And then it accelerated under President Biden.
Now, I don't agree with all the directional commentary there from Senator Kennedy as far as Russia and China's relationship is concerned. I don't think Russia calls Xi Jinping for approval. I don't believe that's the case. I do think that China probably does have some influence there and some sway, but I don't view it that way. More so with Iran. But take away from the gravity of China and think about what this all represents. If China could call Iran and put an end to their aggression against Israel or whoever, don't even think specifics. Just track with me here. Let's say China could take care of Iran's aggression. Let's say China could take care of Russia's aggression. Let's say they could, in this region, with one phone call, lower a lot of these temperatures. Maybe they could, maybe they couldn't. But let's just say they could, and let's say that everything Senator Kennedy is insinuating here is the fact of the matter. So then you have to ask this. Why wouldn't China do that? And this is the most important aspect. And this is why this whole foreign policy of this administration, in my opinion, is a complete and utter disaster. If China could, indeed, with a phone call, end Russian aggression and end Iranian aggression, which would actually move those two wars, those two conflicts towards peace and lower the temperature, why wouldn't China do that? Why wouldn't China do that? Because Xi Jinping knows that Donald Trump right now is distracted with the war in Ukraine. And Xi Jinping knows that Donald Trump is distracted with Israel's interests and foreign policy. So what is Trump not doing? Trump is not focusing on trade. Trump is not focusing on tariffs. Trump is not focusing on trying to rearrange the pieces on the global trade, the international trade chessboard, to position the United States against China that has become the dominant force. And now you understand why it's so frustrating from a foreign policy issue that we're so tied up in Ukraine and we're so tied up in Israel, because neither of these things really benefit us. And the fact that you have to have all of these people trying to, every single day, trying to find out a way to convince you that somehow Israel's interests are your best interests. And they've now basically gone into the religious angle, the theological angle, because nothing else has worked. They can't sell you on the political angle. They can't sell you on the geopolitical angle. They can't sell you on the greatest ally angle. They can't sell you on Israel as the good guy in the region angle. These things have all fallen flat. So now it's nothing more than a theological angle, which, quite frankly, is not winning strategy when it comes to geopolitics, not winning strategy when it comes to foreign policy, and really shouldn't never be approached from a theological perspective when we're talking about geopolitics in the 21st century. Sorry, just can't be. I don't care what your faith is, and I don't care how strong you believe it. These are not theological disputes. These are foreign policy and geopolitical issues. But they have nothing else left. So now it's all theological, why you have to support Israel. Because they can't sell you on how it actually benefits you, because it doesn't. And neither does the war in Ukraine. And Trump is trying to leverage these things to benefit us. Again, that's what I think. Trump is dealing with the hand he's dealt. How can I leverage the situation in Israel for America's benefit? Let's have the Ben Gurion Canal and let's be in control of it. That would benefit America. How can the situation in Ukraine benefit America? Let's move into these regions where the rare earths are. Let's move into these regions where the soil is as pristine anywhere else in the world. And so maybe we can leverage these things for America. But if you don't get those things, there's nothing for us. There's nothing for us. And China continues to dominate the world on trade. China continues to dominate us on trade. And while Trump is over here playing tiddlywinks in Israel and Ukraine, China is over here dominating rare earth minerals, dominating the refineries for rare earths, dominating the ingredients for pharmaceuticals, dominating when it comes to energy production and manufacturing. And we're over here playing tiddlywinks in Israel and Ukraine. So, of course, if China could end the whole thing in Israel, and if China could end the whole thing in Ukraine, of course they wouldn't do it, because it wouldn't benefit China. But you know what does benefit China? Donald Trump being preoccupied in Israel. You know what does benefit China? Donald Trump being preoccupied in Ukraine. And isn't it ironic that all of these voices, they love to point the finger at China, and they love to tell you how much of a threat China is, and you need to be worried about China and how it's the biggest thing ever. And now here you are, and you're letting Israel and Ukraine distract you from China, the real threat. Isn't it ironic? So, yeah, I'm not sure if I agree with all the core direction that Kennedy is coming from here as far as Russia and Iran and China are concerned. But I think generally speaking, he's probably right. And I think generally speaking, China could have an influence over these things and chooses not to, because they know it distracts President Trump. And now look what's happened. Now China is back in the fold. And now China has Russia's ear. And now BRICS just dumped $52 billion US dollars. And the whole Trump administration is tied up in Israel. And the whole Trump administration is tied up in Ukraine. And now the trade war with China, which is probably more important to America than Israel or Ukraine, is being ignored. And China is winning. And the only indicator that you could argue in this most recent round that shows that maybe Trump is winning is the stock market. But the stock market is volatile, folks. The stock market is rigged. The stock market can go down tomorrow. It's all pump and dump right now. So, yeah. Maybe China could end these conflicts. Maybe they could. Maybe they couldn't. But I'll tell you what, they know they benefit from them because they know Donald Trump is distracted. And if Donald Trump is distracted in foreign issues, trying to get them to benefit America, struggling to, but if Donald Trump is tied up in that, then guess what? He's not dealing with China. And he's not interfering with China's goals. And he's not focusing on what China is doing with world trade. And you can say, hey, Trump can do it all. I'm not taking away from Trump's abilities. I'm not taking away from the fact that we could all be impressed by what he's able to do at 80 years old, and obviously his business experience and savvy. I'm not taking any of that away from Trump, but come on, guys. He's not Superman. He's just not. He is a man at the end of the day. He might be an incredible man. He might be an admirable man. He could even be a hero of a man. But he is still just a man. He only has 24 hours in the day, just like everybody else. So no, he can't do it all. It's not even possible. And China loves it. The more distracted America is in the Middle East, and the more distracted America is with Ukraine, the happier China is. And they're loving it now. It's not very nice of our allies in Israel to continue with our distraction from China here, is it? Not really. Not really. All right. I didn't even get into any government shutdown news. I have a bunch of other news as we're closing out the show here, but listen to John Thune today. Listen to John Thune. And this is another one of these issues where it's this gravity phenomenon where it's like, oh, it's all about the shutdown. And so you don't actually listen to what people are saying. You know, I kind of have this pet peeve. I've had it for years. And it's been bothering me lately. An example would be yesterday or 2 days ago when I did the coverage of the death threats against Loomer, Hammer, and Dylan. And a couple of those clips went viral on X. And I realized that all of these people that are commenting on these clips never even listened to what I said. And I'm just like, hey, look, if you want to attack me for what I said, then that's perfectly fair. But when you attack me for things that I never said, then you're just a liar, you're lazy, and you're disingenuous. So these clips went viral, and they're saying, oh, look, Owen is celebrating the death threats, or Owen is saying that the person that sent the death threat shouldn't be arrested. Two complete lies. And if you listen to the clip, I say it's a good thing that they're taking political death threats seriously, and it's a good thing the person got arrested. I say it clear as day in the clip. And they just say, oh, look. They don't even listen to the clip. They just assume what I say and then lie about me. That's a separate issue. So everybody hears John Thune here and they just think, oh, shut down, shut down, shut down. No, I want you to listen to what John Thune says here. I know it's hard, but try to remove your distaste for Democrats while you're listening to this. Try to fight off this force of gravity that makes you think this whole thing is about the shutdown. And listen to what John Thune says. Listen very carefully. Read between the lines to what John Thune says here.
All about politics for them. If they open up the government, their left-wing base goes nuts. If they don't vote for Ron Johnson or something else, then a lot of the federal employees are going to be without pay. And you got a whole lot of other programs out there, including the SNAP program that's available to people who really need food assistance in this country is going to go away here soon too. So we're getting to where the consequences of this are very real. The Democrats continue to play political games. They are afraid, just absolutely desperately afraid of their base. And that's why we're in the situation we're in. So it's going to take 5 Democrats to play political games. They are afraid, just absolutely desperately afraid of their base. They are afraid, just absolutely desperately afraid of their base. They are afraid, just absolutely desperately afraid of their base.
So, for all my constitutional conservatives out there, for all my 1776 American patriots out there, when the government fears the people, there's freedom. When the people fear the government, there's tyranny. So I love to see here the Republicans are running around pointing the finger at the Democrats. But what did John Thune just say? Listen to this one more time.
They are afraid, just absolutely desperately afraid of their base.
So in other words, the Democrats actually do what their base wants them to do. So in other words, Democrat politicians actually listen to their base and when they're outraged, respond to it. Explain to me how that's a bad thing. Oh, I know. It's easy to sit here and talk about how bad the Democrats are. I know. It's easy to sit here and talk about how bad Democrat policy is. I know. It's easy to sit here and talk about how whacked out of their minds liberals are. I know that. No pushback on that. I don't want the Democrat agenda. But that's not what he's saying. What John Thune just told you is why this whole administration is falling apart. Because the Republicans don't respond to their base. The Republicans don't fear their base. And now, yet again, who is in fear? Not the politicians. And it's incredible how many people just don't even get it. And yet they'll come out here all the time talking about the founding fathers. And they're constitutional conservatives. What did the founding fathers say about when the people fear the government versus when the government fears the people? Because as far as I'm concerned, what John Thune just said is that the Democrats actually fear the American people and the Republicans don't. So then in that equation, who's bringing the tyranny? Again, I'm not endorsing Democrats, folks. I'm not endorsing Democrat Party policy. And even the Democrats, they don't do what their voters want. They do what they want. This has nothing to do with the Democrats fearing their base. That's just a Republican Party talking point. So let's just be perfectly clear. The Democrats don't fear their base. But fine, John Thune wants to throw this slop at the American people. Then I'll consume your slop, and I'll put it right back on your plate, John. If the Democrats fear their people, then the Democrats are more free than the Republicans. When a government fears the people, there's freedom, John. So what you've just claimed is that the Democrats represent freedom more than the Republicans. The Republicans don't fear their base. The Republicans don't respond to their base. The Republicans lambaste their base. The Republicans insult their base. The Republicans ignore their base. That's why right-wingers are so disenfranchised. That's why Elon Musk crashed out on the Republicans, because you guys suck. Your policies might be better than the Democrats. You're probably less scandalous. You're probably less criminal. You're less filled with hate. You're probably closer to a normal person than the average Democrat. But based off what I'm hearing from you, John, if the Democrats fear the people, then the Democrats offer us a better road to freedom than the Republicans. Now, again, obviously what you're saying about the Democrats is a lie. It's total slop. The Democrats don't fear their voters. You're just going on Fox and just spouting political slop. But unlike the rest of these people in the media whose minds are just completely mush, I actually listen to what these people say because words matter. And you're not gonna force feed slop on this show. Not gonna happen. And I wish anything of what you just said was true. I wish the Democrats did fear their base. I wish the Republicans did fear their base. I wish the government feared the people, because then I might be free, John. And now you're so caught up in the fake left-right paradigm that the Republicans, the conservatives, the so-called fiscal conservatives, are now out here campaigning for welfare. The conservatives are now out here telling you that the Democrats are bad because their $8 billion a month welfare program is currently inactive. There's nothing conservative about that, John. I didn't know you supported the welfare state, John. Are you a Democrat, John? Trump pardons convicted founder of crypto exchange Binance.
And that.
Let me pull this up. Changpeng Zhao served a 4-month prison sentence, which ended in September 2024, pardoned by Trump. Part of a big scandal. Now, Trump is coming out and saying, oh, it was Biden targeting the crypto community and all this stuff. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe it's a little of both. Because when you listen to what Trump's saying, he's basically saying there's no laws as far as crypto regulation is concerned. So I think there's probably an element of truth to both sides of this, where you could say it was persecution as him being a big crypto guy, but also he probably did something that was maybe extremely unethical, maybe not illegal, but extremely unethical. And I'm just saying, why would Trump be pardoning this guy? I think Trump is pardoning this guy because he wants to bring him in and ingratiate him with the Trump crypto community that is making hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars right now, including his own family. That's what I think is going on. I think the Trump administration or Trump himself cut a deal with this guy. They said, hey, we'll pardon you, but you're going to come in here and help us run these crypto scams, or crypto fully honest above board operations. That's what I think. So I think there's an element of truth to what Trump said today, which is like, yeah, he probably was persecuted by the Biden administration, and there's probably no laws on the books as far as crypto and things are concerned that you could even really legitimately charge him with. But that doesn't mean he's necessarily a good guy. But regardless of all of that, I think Trump wants him as part of their team that's just making money hand over fist on this deal, because Trump used to be anti-crypto. But that's changed. That certainly has changed. All right, I think I've only got time for one more here. So we'll probably have to delay the rest of it till tomorrow. Semi-truck driver arrested in deadly crash on Southern California freeway was in U.S. illegally. Another one. 21-year-old, apparently under the influence. Crash left 3 people dead. This is the sign of a bad economy. People only hire illegal workers because they can't afford not to. It's a sign of a bad economy. Pomona High School coach and wife among 3 killed in chain reaction crash. Same crash we were talking about. This is a different one. Trucking company owned by illegal immigrant raked in money from taxpayers before a fatal crash. Borko Stankovic allegedly caused multi-vehicle accident while driving without valid commercial license. They don't even have a valid license, folks. So now law enforcement is going to have to find a way to respond to this. And, you really do, I think, philosophically, you hate to hold people accountable for somebody else's actions. But at the same time, if you hire somebody illegally and you hired them illegally and you allowed them to drive a truck that requires a license and you facilitated that resulted in death, sorry, but you're going to jail. You have to. You have to deter this type of behavior. Can't be tolerated. Criminal illegal alien kills Indiana man after driving semi-truck into oncoming traffic without valid commercials driver's license. And there's so many of these stories now. There's multiples. There's multiples of these in the news almost every day. Maybe they'll just eventually replace all of these workers with automatic driving trucks. Amazon hopes to replace 600,000 U.S. workers with robots, according to leaked documents. Well, yeah, that's where a lot of this stuff is going to end up. And, I think Elon Musk is a good person. I really do. I think he's maybe, as far as the uber rich centibillionaires are concerned, Elon is probably the most moral of them all, probably the most pro-human of them all. But with that, I think there comes this hint of naivety, because he talks about this issue. He doesn't shy away from it. And Musk talks about this issue. He just did an interview, and he was asked about the phenomenon of robot workers replacing humans. And he said, it's not going to matter. They say, well, what about the jobs? And Musk says, well, it's not going to matter because the cost of living is going to go down to such a degree when the robots are doing everything that it's not going to be, its life is going to be much more affordable. Now, I tend to believe that even in a very corrupt situation like we might have right now in the United States of America, I do believe that there is some sort of a cosmic balancing act. And even if you want to look at things from the extreme angle of we're all just slaves to this system, well, the slave masters know enough that the slaves themselves have to be at least somewhat happy and sedated to maintain their slavery. So there's always going to have to be that balance. But even outside of that paradigm, there's always kind of this balance in humanity. So I would like to think that Musk is right, and that when the robots start doing everything, the cost of living will go down to such a degree that it'll be a lot less stressful. But I highly doubt that the owners, as they see it, of this planet is going to allow that to happen. And I think that this is where Musk separates himself from the rest of them. And maybe Bezos, too. I think Bezos gets a bad rap. Or Bezos, maybe now that he's on the testosterone, is seeing things a little clearer now. He was just on the Andy Frisella show. But no, I think Musk genuinely believes that you can have a pro-human world run by robots. But I think that he underestimates how much some of the others in the uber-rich hate humanity. And I think he underestimates, he has his own visions, but they have plans. Elon Musk has visions for humanity. The Bill Gateses of the world, the World Economic Forum, and these types of groups, they have plans for humanity. They don't envision humanity unleashed. They plan on humanity enslaved. That's why they promote the whole carbon tax nonsense. So, all right, that's going to do it for the content of today's show. We do have an announcement to make over at owenschroyer.store, though, before we sign off here. Before we sign off, let me show you what we have. Remember, all official Owen Report apparel can be found at owenschroyer.store. We have launched a new t-shirt, ladies and gentlemen. This is my mindset. Actually, there's 2 new shirts available. Well, I guess technically 3. USA versus everybody. That's right. For the America-only patriots out there. For the America first, America only, American excellence patriots out there, we finally have a t-shirt for you. USA versus everybody, available now at owenschroyer.store. And you know what? We have abandoned our female audience, and I apologize for that. I do. So I said we got to have another female shirt up at the site. It's the only one. We need to correct this. This is a gross oversight that this is our only women's shirt. But for right now, it's the only women's shirt we have. Maybe we can correct that. We have the USA versus everybody in men's and women's. So the women's cut is also available. USA versus everybody. But it's a terrible wrong. It's a discrimination against women that we only have one woman's cut t-shirt right now at the storefront. So we may need to add a couple more. Remember, don't forget the USA hats, USA hoodies. And then we did just drop this. I'm waiting for mine to arrive in the mail before I really promote this. But the gold Win Network Founders logo shirt is in stock at owenschroyer.store. So it's this shirt that I'm wearing today, except in gold with a black logo. And so that is also on the store. I'll be wearing that on air before too long. All right, that is going to do it for today. Tonight, I'm going on the Jewcast. That's right. With Andrew Meyer is hosting the show tonight in an hour. I'll be on with a good friend of mine, Andrew Meyer. We'll be talking some politics, having a couple laughs, I'm sure, later on tonight. And then fighting to get his X account back. Andrew Meyer is still banned or suspended from X, so I'm sure we'll be addressing that as well. That'll be in about 1 hour at 7 p.m. Central. I'll be picking it back up with Andrew Meyer on his show. Otherwise, This show is going to be taking a 21-hour break, and we'll be back same time, same channel tomorrow. Appreciate everybody for tuning in today. Remember to support today's sponsor, mypatriotsupply.com/Owen. mypatriotsupply.com/Owen for all your emergency supplies, food, and gear, including the electricity-free space heater, which also can be used to boil water and cook food. A necessity for any preparedness kit. Our friends at mypatriotsupply.com/Owen. Thank you for sponsoring today's show. That does it. I'll see you in an hour with Andrew Meyer, or 21 hours right here, same time.